This is no huddle to keep a package that was a second down package from the defense on the field. Get them in a spot where you're 3rd and 22, and now you're like, okay, what's the deal? I like it. It didn't get the first down,
What's
but they got
up?
the yards back. Got the yards back, made it an easier field goal. It also gives them a decision to make. Look at how he protects him with this ball. Just the little things, man. He's not throwing him in there to get him killed. He's protecting his guy. That's a really good ball, man. 14-13 at this point. They did not get points in that last drive. Play action? That was great play action, by the way. And bam, got him. And just flip the field, man. It was a great ball. Actually, let's go back and watch that. Let's watch that from the back view. Got my Black Rifle coffee this morning. New sponsor. Shout out to the gang. We'll have the affiliate link.
I have this problem with my guests a lot, so I thought I'd get this proverb. It's a good proverb. And then we got this one. I wonder if this is the NIV. I like how it's worded here. Like a dog that returns to its vomit, a fool does the same foolish things again and again. People who think they are wise when they are not are worse than fools. That sums up just about my whole TikTok experience right there. Oh, there's like ads on that one. Oh, that one's kind of cut off. That didn't work out too well. Einstein abused his first cousin wife. Welcome you in.
Hello.
Hello. So I got the topics up here.
So, could you argue that the world is exactly 6,000 years as 6,000 years old as it says in the Bible?
I don't really know anything about that topic.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't really argue the age of the earth.
What about Adam and Eve?
What about them?
Well, do you think Adam and Eve were the first two humans on Earth, or do you believe in the theory of evolution?
I believe everything the Bible says. No, I don't believe in evolution.
How come?
Because I think the people who created that theory were like Satanists, and they had motivated reasons to like remove God as a creator of organisms from the sphere of rational discussion.
So you believe that they were Satanists, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Why?
So Charles Darwin's father, Erasmus Darwin, he was part of something called the Midnight Society, where like they would meet on the full moon once a month. This group of like super, super rich elite people in Britain. And I'm a believer that if something happens today, it probably happened in the past. And so today we have the same thing where like super rich people will meet at places like Bohemian Grove to worship the devil.
So you think that because Charles Darwin engaged in questionable acts in this midnight society.
Erasmus Darwin. Erasmus Darwin. Charles Darwin was from an elite family. Like he married his first cousin.
What was his father's name?
Erasmus.
Wrong. His father's name was Robert.
No.
And anyway, uh, just because his father engaged in questionable acts in this midnight club, by association, he must be a Satanist, right?
His name was Erasmus Robert Darwin.
No, his name was Robert Waring Darwin. It's just a Google search away.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm talking about his grandfather. My bad.
Oh, so even better for my argument. I mean, you think just because his grandfather engaged in questionable acts at this midnight society, which I googled it and it was from Cambridge University, you think that must mean that Charles Darwin, his grandson, is a Satanist, worships Satan, the devil, from the Bible.
Yeah, they worship demons.
So is it demons or Satan?
I mean, whatever, dude. Same difference.
No, but I'm asking you, which one is it?
Okay, well, if you're gonna quibble about words, I'll just kick you.
Whoa, wait, whoa. I don't even do anything.
Yeah, I don't.
Hello?
I don't want to quibble about words. I can't.
Well, I think you just respectfully need to get your facts straight. I don't think you really know what you're talking about.
What's wrong? What's wrong with my facts?
I mean, you didn't know that it was his grandfather. You don't know for a fact that he ever worshipped Satan himself.
Okay, but you're being pedantic.
Sorry?
You're making a big deal because I mistook the father for the grandfather. That's not like a big deal.
Okay, but still, there's zero evidence, like not even like a little bit, that.
Dude, what is wrong with you? Okay, like,
What?
what are we talking about here? I'm not trying to prove to you.
I'm trying to prove to you
Hold
that
on,
evolution.
Hold on. Look at the topics on my screen, okay? This is what I'm about debating. I'm not trying to prove. If you want to believe in fucking evolution, dude, I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna.
Science is
I'm
impossible
not
without
interested
God.
in.
I guess that's what I'm arguing.
Well, I'm not interested in debating evolution. Like, science is goofy. Like, I don't care about that shit.
Science is goofy.
Science is goofy. It's full of prejudicial conjecture. Like, it's bottom tier level evidence.
Bottom tier level evidence. Is that what you said?
Yes. If I were to tier out like how I value evidence, the top would be like knowledge from God, top tier.
Really?
Second's going to be like logic, like because logic is necessary, so we can be pretty certain that logic is true. And then like third is going to be something like science.
So, but the argument could easily be made that science is an extension of logic because observation and research leads to hypotheses which are tested.
Yeah, but
And
science,
if
you couldn't do science without the Bible, so you can't use science to debunk any biblical claim.
so, then how could societies that did not practice Christianity use science?
Because they lived in the Christian world. So I'm saying someone doesn't have to believe in Christianity to do science, but the claims of the Bible about the world, the story in the Bible needs to be true for science to be possible.
The story in the Bible has to be true for science to be possible?
Correct.
So then, how? That just doesn't make any sense.
Sure it does.
If societies thousands of years ago proved that something okay, let me ask you this. Does the earth revolve around the sun or does the sun revolve around the earth? I promise this ties in. I just want you to answer the question.
The Earth revolves around the sun.
So then, by your argument, it would be illogical for that to happen because however many, I don't even know how many years ago this happened, but in the Renaissance period, scientists and astronomers proved that the Earth revolved around the sun when it was a church argument that the sun, in fact, revolved around the Earth. And the scientists who proved that,
Just ignorant. The science at that time proved geocentrism. They had a model of the stars. It was a geocentric model that worked. So,
there's no science that proves that the sun revolves around the Earth.
there is a working geocentric model.
No, there's not.
You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, there is.
I know there is not because it was proven wrong by Galileo.
Yeah, that's why you don't understand science. You see,
I do understand. It sounds to me like you don't understand science because you put logic and science in two separate categories when in fact science is an extension of logic.
multiple paradigms or models can fit data. So the geocentric model can fit the data, and the heliocentric model can fit the data. And we prefer the heliocentric model because it fits the data better based on an arbitrary standard, basically. So that's science. I don't know what does this have to do with anything.
You said science is impossible without God. And so why would God put one science in the hands of one community and then different science in the hands of another community?
What are you talking about? I'm saying that the story in the Bible where God creates the world and he endows order in the world that would make science possible. If you deny that divine foundation, then you'd have a world of chaos where there would be no ultimate foundation to make science possible. He just left.
What's up?
Welcome.
Hold on 1 second. I'm walking down my stairs right now. Hello.
You got your crunk coat?
Huh?
It sounded like you had a crunk coat.
Oh, no, I just got a glass of water. Throat's dry.
Just kidding.
Anyway, so I just want to clarify. I'm not trying to like be disrespectful to you or anything because I believe that anyone's allowed to believe in whatever religion they want. But I am atheist. So I just want to know like what makes you believe that atheism is baseless and irrational?
There's no like good reason to think atheism is true, so there's no rationale to support it.
Wouldn't the what made me come to the conclusion of atheism is because I can't find anything else that I could believe in. Thus, the only conclusion I could come to being that there isn't really a purpose or something out there for me. I've never found a religion that I could just go to and say, this makes sense to me. It just never has.
And that's cool if you want to do that, take that as your position, but that's just not a rational position. So
What makes it irrational?
the lack of the rationale to support the position.
Yeah, but what makes it irrational?
Well, see, like I believe in Christianity, and if you go like, why do you think Christianity is true? I would give you evidence, and I wouldn't just go like, oh well, I'm just not convinced of atheism. So if I'm not convinced of atheism, I guess I'm a theist.
Um, what was I gonna say? Sorry. I have a disability, so sometimes my brain just like kind of loops. Um,
Mm.
But what evidence do you have that Christianity is proven?
Transcendental argument for God. Um, the idea is sort of like um, I'm proposing a model of reality where like God, that knowledge ultimately comes from God. God constructs knowledge, and because we're made in God's image, we can know things in like a derivative sense where our knowledge derives and depends upon God who constructs the knowledge. And
But
so, and
that's
that's
just that's but if that's the evidence you're going off of, isn't that kind of baseless? Because you're just using God as if there's no proof of God. You're just using God as the answer rather than that's like doing blank
mm,
plus blank is equal to 3 without having the individual steps.
there would be tangible proof in the sense that like God has revealed himself in human history, like Moses, Abraham, Jesus, the Bible, the history of the church. Then there's also like metaphysical realities that indicate the Christian God, like how only the triune doctrine um, can explain the problem of like unity and diversity in the world.
Um, I feel like one of my main issue with um, believing that Christianity exists comes from the fact that there is currently in the modern day no real way for me to completely know it is insured and true, specifically
Yes.
because this happened thousands and theoretically this would have happened thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. So what can like how is there any tangible evidence from the modern day that could prove to me
Well,
that Christianity is an accurate source of where we come from?
I'm giving you a philosophical proof on one hand, right? It's a transcendental proof, where I'm saying that like God is the ground of all being, and He's revealed Himself as the ground of being, and we know that because He revealed it.
How did he reveal himself?
Like I said, like Moses, Abraham, Jesus,
How do we
Bible.
know that? How do we
He's
know
all,
that Moses, Abraham, Jesus ever existed in
well,
the first place?
he's also like his invisible qualities are made obvious and plain. That's
Such
a
as
thing. Like we see the order in the world, like I was talking about earlier. There's order in the world, and that indicates the mind of that which ordered it.
yeah, but that could also be just living beings being living
Well,
beings. It doesn't have to necessarily
but
mean that there's a God that chose to bring us here.
now
But
you're debating a would be could be. That's just a fantasy. Like how would you know that?
well, I mean, I believe like it just makes more
I mean,
sense.
I don't know.
I feel
Do
like
you
it
think
makes more.
like do you think you can just like make some? Well, this could be true. That's called an ad hoc rescue fallacy.
Well, how like what type of Christian are you? Like
I'm a
what's like
badass Christian.
Darwinism? Not Darwinism. Sorry. Sorry. Like
Um,
Lutheran. Lutheran. Is that what it is?
I mean, I call myself like a non-denominational evangelican.
Mm, okay, so what makes you believe that your type of Christianity is the true one compared to the other types of Christianity?
I don't have a specific type, but
Um,
it doesn't. I don't
but what
think.
if there was one? What if one of them actually is the correct specific type that you're
Well,
supposed to believe in, and you got it wrong, and now you're going to hell because you believed in the wrong thing?
that's not how Christianity works. It's not about having like the correct beliefs. It's about aligning your heart with God's heart.
What if you're not doing aligning your heart with God's heart in the way that He wants you to?
I mean, the idea is we repent, we turn towards God, we pray, we have a relationship with God, and through like prayer, um, we become more and more like Jesus. Like the Holy Spirit transforms us over time, and it's like It's something we work out we're working on until we die.
Uh, well, what about in cases where people will grow up not even knowing what Christianity is, and then they die? Are they just since they didn't know,
So
are they just gonna be banished? You know what I mean?
everyone knows the Christian God's obvious. It's just some people suppress the truth and unrighteousness. Like even if you're born
Well,
on
I
an
mean, like,
island.
I feel I don't. Well, imagine like there's like this family that was born in the woods, right? They never
Yeah.
taught their kid anything about religion or anything like that. The kid was just born, had no opportunity to choose for himself. Is that kid just supposed to know?
Yes, because for one, God's invisible qualities are obvious, and for two, we're made in God's image. So he wouldn't have like the full revelation of Christ, but the world would reveal the Christian God regardless of like if he has the Bible or not.
Uh, I feel like that's pretty. I feel like that's not exactly how it would go. I don't believe that the kid would just suddenly believe that there's a God. I feel like, and I don't believe that they would really believe or
But
even
like,
understand that concept. Because Christianity in general is a big concept. There's a lot of things that go into it that
uh,
simply,
it doesn't have to be that complicated. I mean, you could just say like God is love, right? And so when people have love in their heart, then they know God.
mm, well, if I have love in my heart, even though I don't have a relationship with God, does that mean that I have, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you have unconditional love in your heart, then that's God.
How am I supposed to know that that's God and not unconditional love?
That's what in Christianity that's what we believe. We believe that like God is unconditional love and he pours his love in our hearts, and that's why we when we love other people as Christians as we're commanded, then we reveal God's God because God is love. We give him glory, we reveal him by loving others, and that's God.
And the thing about your evidence, though, is like such as the existence of Moses or Jesus or whoever. It just that's from that would be tens of thousands of years ago. That could be
Not that
misconstrued
long,
and
but
like in different ways. Like, how are we supposed to know that? Like, how do we know that it's just not baseless? Like, how do we know it's just not made up?
because it's the transcendental argument for God shows that like what the Christian Bible describes is the the ground of being. God, Jesus says he's the ground of being, and he reveals like he has the perfect attributes. Like the
How do you
Trinity
know
is
that
necessary.
Jesus was real? Because
I'm
he was
telling
just
you because he said he revealed himself as like God with the perfect attribute set. So like no other God has the attribute set
yeah, but
that
that's
could.
just what the Bible says, right? Like, how are we supposed to
Well,
know
because
for sure that Jesus actually existed other than what is said in the Bible? Because that's just circular reasoning. The Bible says Jesus was real, so Jesus has to have been real. That's like if I were to make a dude named Global Normstrom, and then I said that he was real like 50 million years ago, and then
but
like
this is
just
ad hoc
that's
rescue. We're not talking about imagination land. We're talking about reality.
but
We're not debating fantasies.
it seems more like a fantasy when it comes to the
It doesn't
fact
matter
that
what it seems
no
what.
real
Like that's
proof.
not my position. My position is God revealed himself in history, right? That's my
How,
position. So
how
like
did he
I
reveal himself other than with Jesus, who was written in the Bible?
look, he revealed himself as the self-authenticating like proposition, okay?
How so?
Because he is the ground of being. He's ultimate reality. I'm saying ultimate reality, the thing that makes things true, revealed itself to me. So I can have a system of truth because I know what makes things true, since the thing that makes things true revealed itself to me. So I'm saying the Bible is the authoritative word of God. It's true because it comes from God, the authority of truth, in the system of truth.
How do you
So
know
you're
it comes
saying
from? How do you know it comes from God specifically, and
So
not just any
here's the
random.
problem. You have a problem now, right? So I'm saying the Bible's the authority. You want to say the Bible isn't the authority, you see, right? You're saying the Bible's not the authority. That's your position. Hello?
Sorry, there's like some shaking outside my house. Yeah.
Yeah, and so are you saying that is that based on what, your opinion, or are you appealing to like another
I'm like
authority?
straight when it comes to logic, if the Bible is the only type of evidence you can go back to back up a claim,
You're not
then
getting
it's
it.
not. Well,
I'm saying the Bible's the self-authenticating starting point in my system of truth. Okay? And I'm arguing the Bible as a system. I'm not just saying the Bible's true. I'm saying this is a system of truth, right?
define what you mean by a system of truth. Define what you mean by a system of truth.
Epistemology,
Huh?
theory of knowledge.
Yeah, but it's like that's pretty baseless to go off of because yeah, you might believe it, but it doesn't make sense in any other context because
Yeah.
the evidence is made on its own. in the
Novel,
sense
but
that, like,
how do we know something's true or false? We have a system of truth that determines it, right?
yeah, but it has to
You
have
have a system of truth, and I have a system of truth, and they're different, right?
yeah,
So
but
now, how do we know whose system of truth is correct?
you have to like there's things that are objectively
So
proven.
novel, I'm arguing the Bible as a system of truth, right? And if you are in the position where you're like, well, I reject that authority, right? You're saying the Bible's not the authority in the system of truth. So I'm asking you now, since you've said it's not, the Bible's not the authority, what is the authority in your system that's like your system apparently is better than mine? What is your authority?
That there simply isn't one. I believe that since there's no real religion that I have seen that I could come to and think that it is realistic to me, the only conclusion that I came up to on my own was that there probably isn't one. Thus, I'm atheist.
Right. But the problem here is like you're saying, well, in my opinion, the Bible's not the authority.
Yeah, but aren't you saying in your opinion that the Bible is the authority? You said that it's objectively proven, meaning that there is
Yes.
complete absolute proof. The
Right.
thing is that the proof is from the Bible, which is unreliable because it's self-explaining. It's like if I said that
Well,
if I wrote in a book that this man did a
the,
backflip and then like
the
it's really
problem
simple.
is the problem is you've said like I have no authority of truth in my system, but then you want to turn around and tell me my system's unreliable. Well, that's just based off your opinion. Do you see the problem?
But
But
you're saying it's not that I'm arguing that I'm
oh my
correct.
God.
It could be wrong, but I'm just saying that you said that it's proven, but the proof that you have, you're saying that Christianity is objectively proven, but the proof that you have is a trust me bro type of source.
No, I'm saying God revealed himself in human history. If you deny that revelation, you will be reduced to absurdity or global skepticism where you have no authority.
You're saying
Hold
that he
on.
revealed himself.
You're reduced to an absurdity because you just admitted I have no authority of truth in my system. So now everything you claim is just an opinion. And you've basically you've lost the debate, but apparently you're like not aware of that.
This is circular reasoning. You
Okay.
are. What the fuck are you saying?
It's not circular reasoning. Well, how would you? I'm saying the Bible's my verification principle. Do you know what a verification principle is?
Yeah, but it's not a good
Hello?
verification principle to go off of.
Yeah, but you're not offering another verification principle to replace it, are you?
But that's not what we've been arguing about.
The Bible's a bad verification principle. And then I go, oh, why is that? Like, how could you defeat it? And you go, oh, because of my opinion. I don't know.
I said because it's a trust me bro kind of source. It's like it's the
Dude,
Bible says
what are you
doing
doing
so you just gotta assume that it did.
What are you doing different than trust me, bro, right now? You're just appealing to your fucking opinion.
What opinion? What is my opinion?
Dude, what is wrong with you? You just said I have no authority of truth. So whenever you make a truth claim, that's just your opinion.
When did I say that?
Okay, thanks for coming.
Bro is so pressed. Everyone watching this, just know that he fucking lost. He just got dicked down.
Okay, dude, if you think so, clip that. Jeez. These people are so goofy. Yeah, guys, I lost the debate to his opinion. It was a really good opinion, though. Welcome, Alex.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm not debating against it. My issue is that I can't accept things, I can't get my head around things that I've thought about a lot, and it's just certain things with Christianity that I have tried to be a Christian. I've recently come away like a couple months back. Are you okay with this kind of discussion, or are you purely just debating?
I mean, I don't know. So what are you saying? You used to be a Christian and now you're not?
I haven't, so I'm kind of like 95% away. There's still like 5% that's kind of like apart, with it a little bit. Like I'm more away than what I am with, like that's where I'm at. I had a conversation with a pastor about an hour or so ago on the phone, and he's just saying like keep the faith and all of that, and it's just got me thinking. So I kind of come on TikTok to see if I can talk to someone about it, someone that's understanding of Christianity.
I mean, I don't know if I'm the best person to talk to because I like do apologetics and I do debates. So I like have an argument that proves Christianity is true. But like,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna be honest, I don't think people really base their beliefs on like logic and evidence. I think people are driven mainly by like emotions, or there's also something called ethos, which is like kind of like if you think another human being, if you admire another, like you know how they sell products with like LeBron James or something, right? And people are like,
Yeah.
oh, I like LeBron James, so that must be a good product if he's supporting it, and then they buy the product. That's called an appeal to ethos. And so people mainly respond to ethos, which is like, oh, someone who has a character that I respect likes something, therefore it's true. Or emotions, like, I want this to be true, therefore it's true. So that's really how people operate. So, like, I don't know. If I was going to convince someone of Christianity, I would try to appeal to like emotions, or to like, look at this guy in like history, like everyone respects, like Frederick Douglass. He's a Christian, and he had a good character and integrity. Don't you want to be like Frederick Douglass? I would do some argument like that to convince you. I don't know, but like I do think if you're going, like, I believe it's objectively provable to the Bible. So I don't know. That's where I'm at that. I've been a Christian for like 5 years, and I've been studying like the evidence and truth and how we know things are true. And I'm like utterly convinced that like Christianity is 100% true. So
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's not something that I'm against in that sense. I wouldn't say I'm against it. It's just more about things that I can't accept, things that don't sit well. Just think like examples. So with God, right, you have to plug in real pretty deep to, I mean, this is something that I kind of have been told and heard different pastors and stuff say, but you kind of got to connect in with God pretty deep in order to sort of like have him do anything for you. And it's like, every Christian is a child of God. There's the child and there's the father. If a child needs something, and they need help with this or they need that or whatever, generally speaking, that father in this world, like a worldly father, should be doing those things, in a perfect world. That's how it should be. With God, though, I find that if it's not when he wants to do it, if it's not on his time and it doesn't happen there and then, and sometimes like for my life, there's things that I've needed there and then that I didn't get. And so that to me is wrong because like, I mean, people like kids get taken out of their parents, away from their parents by like social service and stuff. Like I've been in care myself, I know you guys in the States have like social service and stuff. Like, child neglect, that's a reason for children to be taken away from their parents, right? But with God, it's like that person may really need something there and then, but because it's not on God's time and it's not going to happen. So to me, it's kind of almost that similar principle where he's a parent, not if a parent gets pulled up in court, like, why did you not do that there and then? I was going to do it later. It wasn't the right time, even though the child needed it, even though it was enough.
Well,
Did you get what I'm saying? Like, that's something I really struggle with.
So the way I think about that is that sometimes what we think we need or what is not actually what we need. There's a story about like a guy who his horse ran away, and everyone said, "Oh, that's really bad. Your horse ran away. That sucks." But then, like a few days later, the horse came back, and there was some wild horses with it. So now he's got like more horses. So it's like what was bad is now good because events change over time. And then his son, riding the horse, falls off the horse, breaks his leg, or breaking in one of the wild horses, breaks his leg. Everyone's like, "Oh man, that's bad. You broke your leg." But then, would you note it? A couple days later, there's a war, and he doesn't have to go to war because he broke his leg. Well, now it's good he broke his leg. And basically, the point of the story is like, as humans, we have a limited perspective of like time, reality, and everything, and we can't really judge what's the right or the best thing for us. And you have to have the whole perspective to know what's like good and bad, and God possesses that. And so like I think sometimes he doesn't grant our prayers is because he like knows what's best, and like maybe going through adversity and suffering is what we really need, because I think in Christianity we believe that like adversity can make you like a stronger person, and it can build character, and then character builds like hope, and our hope is legit because Jesus like died for our sins. So I don't know. That's sort of how I would think of that. Sometimes things don't make sense, but we just I guess that's where like faith comes in, that you have to trust that God like knows best. We can't answer like every question.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. Yeah, it's not straightforward, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm gonna jump down. I'm seeing people like want to come up. I'm not really here to debate, but I appreciate what you said, and yeah, I've taken that on board. So thank you.
I hope I could help you out there. I don't know. I tried my best. I'm not probably the best guy to ask, so I wish you well, man, or good luck with that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. God
All
bless.
right. Bye.
Yeah, I'm more of a debater than like a pastor.
Hey,
Hello.
I'm just wondering, like, how can you be 100% sure that he's real?
I think that well, we can be as certain like as humanly possible, I would say, right?
Okay, because, like, okay, I got another question. So, like, I'm agnostic, and my reason for that is because, like, I think if you're Christian, that means that you think, like, 100% that he's real. And if you're atheist, you're like 100% that he's not real. Is that wrong? Like, you don't have to be 100% to be in one religion or the other?
Well, I'm a Christian, and based on my beliefs, like I think Christianity is obvious. So I don't really think you can be agnostic.
Yeah. Oh. Well, so,
'Cause-
like, you're not 100% that he's real. Like, you don't 100% believe that.
No, I'm 100% God's real.
Okay, so how can you be 100% sure?
I think the transcendental argument for God, the transcendental proof, like a philosophical proof. So it's like sort of like logic. Like if I were to try to deny that logic is true, I would have to use logic to even deny logic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like I can be certain logic is true because like it's impossible to deny it in any like without contradicting myself. So I think God of the same way. Like it's impossible to deny God without a contradiction. So like that's like the highest form of certainty I think we can have.
Oh. Okay, I see your view on it. But yeah, you said you don't like really think agnostic, like you said you don't believe in it, or what did you say? I forgot.
Well, okay, so imagine like I kind of think of God as the elephant in the room, meaning like God's
Hmm.
obvious to everyone. And so you could, if you're in a room with an elephant, could you be agnostic about the elephant in the room? No, because you
No.
can see it. So I think everyone can see or know God, but they just some people suppress the truth and unrighteousness.
Oh.
That's what the Bible says.
Okay. I guess I see your view on it, but yeah, I'm just agnostic because I think even like with like atheism, I don't think you can 100% prove anything because God is all knowing. Us as humans, we're not, and because we're not all knowing, we can't like 100% like prove anything. So that's why I'm agnostic. But besides that, I think the base of atheism is just that there is no gods. Like gods don't exist. Like, is
Right.
that not the base?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say
So
it's like denial of the creator creature distinction to be like technical.
yeah, so like why does that say it's baseless? Is that just to get people to argue?
Well, because like it's not like people become atheists because of evidence, right?
I think people become atheists, yeah, because of lack of evidence.
Right. So I mean, if I were to say, "Oh, well, theism is true because there's no evidence for atheism," you wouldn't accept that, right? That would sound silly.
Um, I don't know. I'd accept really
Really?
anything. Like I don't care what you believe in.
No,
It's
but
just it's just because like you
logically
can't
is
prove
what I'm saying.
anything.
I'm saying logically that wouldn't make sense to say, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, we know theism is true because there's no evidence for atheism." That doesn't work.
Yeah, that yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
say, "Well, I'm an atheist because there's no evidence for theism," fine, you can say that, but it's just not logical. Like, so you're just your position's irrational. Like, if we're gonna be honest, like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be like, let's be real. It's like a reality check. I'm like, check.
Yeah, okay. And the third one, science is impossible without God. Like I think that like science, like us, like we can perform our own experience, not experience, experiments and stuff to figure out like science and stuff, like scientific stuff. I don't think we need God or the Bible to prove something.
Well, the problem is like science doesn't prove science is true. So like science has all these like assumptions to make science work, and I'm saying like God explains all those things that science assumes. So that's why science would need God.
Yeah, I don't think science would need God. You think that wait, you think that wait, you think that we need God for science?
Yeah, because
I
like
thought it was okay. I'm not like really like all that into Christianity or whatever, but I thought that like a lot of things in the Bible didn't go with science.
yeah, like I think evolution and the Bible don't mix. So that's why
Yeah, so like how would they need God if they don't agree with him?
but for like in a foundational sense to make science work. Like science needs like order in the world. If everything was random all the time, we couldn't do science.
Right.
So God,
But no, okay, so like for example, I don't know. I need to think of like an example. Um so like what's a scientific like standpoint that you think is proven by the Bible and we can't prove ourselves?
oh,
Um
sorry, I was muted. What was that question again?
okay, so like what's like a scientific like thing that you think is like proven by the Bible or God that we can't prove ourselves?
No, I'm just saying like to even do the experiment, you have to be able to repeat the experiment. And so like in a world without a God, you wouldn't be able to you would get different results every time you repeated an experiment because there'd be no like consistency.
Okay. Sorry for laughing, but I just like I don't know like what could you use in an example to prove your point? Because I think like because like you can't just say like in general like I need like a specific thing.
If we think of like any object or something, like I'm saying like God would limit the object's properties, like an apple or something. I always bring up the apple.
An apple. Okay, can you like go into that? I'm confused.
Yeah, so we experience objects and they like they maintain the same, like we call it identity over time, or it
Hmm.
has the same properties over time.
Yeah.
So like we need something that limits the properties, because presumably if there's no limit to the properties, it would have like it could randomly have infinite properties at any moment in time. So there has to be, I'm saying God revealed himself as the thing that limits the apple properties. And without,
Okay, sorry.
imagine if there's no limit to the apple and the apple's like changing properties constantly. You couldn't
Right.
experiment on the apple because the properties would change every experiment.
Would change every experiment. Properties as in what? Like, what do you mean properties?
Like
Like
it's
solid,
round,
liquid, gas, elements? What are you
yeah,
talking about?
solid. It's like round or apple shaped.
Well, some things can change properties, so I'm confused about what you mean.
Yeah, but
Like,
there's like all apples are going to share this like property of like, well, not, I mean, I know there's like different colored apples, but all red apples would share the property red.
yeah,
Right. So
we don't need God to understand that though. Like that's common sense to us. That's we don't need we like without the Bible, we'd be able to understand that.
no, we need something to limit the properties. If there's no limit, then it's chaos.
Limit the properties.
Yeah,
The
without
Bible limits properties.
the God of the Bible is ultimate reality or the ground of being that limits. Yeah, he dictates what is, what can, what cannot be in the world, the state of affairs. So he makes the apple be an apple. He imposes that identity and he secures it over time. But in a godless model of reality, nothing that does that.
So what tells you that God does that? Does the Bible tell you that?
He reveals it, yeah. That's the only way we could know anything about God, is if he reveals it. That's why if you deny revelation, it entails a performative contradiction or absurdity, where you'd be in a world of like mystery, ultimate mystery, and you couldn't do science in the world of ultimate mystery.
So all right. Okay. I don't know. I don't really understand still, but um yeah,
Yeah,
that's all I had to ask.
kind of a difficult one to understand. It took me a long time to understand it, so don't feel bad or anything.
Yeah. But thanks. All right, I'm gonna let these other people come up. Bye bye.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, he was mature, at least. He's pretty well behaved. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good. I don't know if you remember our last conversation.
I remember talking to you, but it's like I talked to so many people.
Yeah.
So.
It ended you balked at a question I asked and thought I was absurd and then just dismissed me.
Yeah.
But what I realized is the question that I asked is fundamentally the equivalent to how do you falsify solipsism, hard solipsism.
Falsify it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I would say like
because your position presumes that it's false. So how do you falsify it?
yeah, the problem with hard solipsism is like how do we connect our mind to other minds or connect our mind to the world or objects of knowledge?
No, you understand what solipsism is?
You're the only mind that exists.
Your mind is the only thing that exists.
Yeah.
So there are no other minds to connect to. There is no external word to connect to.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't be able to do those things.
Yeah, so it's like how do we prove that solipsism isn't true? That's the problem, right?
That's the question, yeah. That's
and so
the same what I asked in different words, yeah.
Yeah, so we need a single unifying principle with causal powers that can connect our mind to other minds and can connect our mind to the world.
Yeah, that's incoherent. There is no other minds in an external world. If solipsism is true, there is no external world. There are no other minds.
Yeah,
so
we're trying to prove that it's not true.
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking. How do you prove that it's not true?
Right. We need to have in the system a single unifying principle of causal powers, or like, in other words, ultimate reality needs to reveal itself to us so that we can.
Under hard solipsism, your mind would be ultimate reality. And since your mind has the power of introspection, that would be the mechanism by which it reveals itself to itself.
In hard solipsism, you'd be in a world of ultimate mystery.
No, you would be the world, and since your mind has introspection, you would have full access to the entire existence, which would be your mind.
And you're just wrong.
Your mind is the entirety of existence. Since your mind has introspection, you now have access to the entirety of existence. You would essentially know everything that there is to know.
No, that's you wouldn't know anything.
Why not? You have the power of introspection, don't you? I do. I have the power of introspection. Introspection produces knowledge. I have knowledge of my internal states. Even under solipsism, I have knowledge of my own mental states.
In solipsism, you wouldn't know the ultimate. You'd lack ultimate context. You'd be in a world.
You would be the ultimate.
No.
Your mind is the ultimate.
No.
I think maybe you don't understand what solipsism is. Solipsism is that your mind is the only thing that exists.
That doesn't mean it's ultimate. It's a world.
I don't know what you mean by ultimate then. Your mind would be, if your mind is the only thing that exists, if your mind is the only thing that exists, it would be ultimate.
You're not getting this.
How could there be something beyond your mind in a world where there is nothing beyond your mind? That's incoherent.
The human mind can't be ultimate. Like, no one thinks the human mind.
Why not?
Doesn't say the human mind is ultimate. You just don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying, how do you falsify it?
There we go.
Because your position assumes that it's false. So how do you justify that claim that it's false?
I explained all this to you. Like, you're just a nonsense person.
No, nothing you've said falsifies it.
Okay.
You say, well, you wouldn't be able to do such and such. Well, yeah, you wouldn't be able to do such and such. If your mind is the only thing that exists, yeah, you can't connect to something beyond your mind because there is nothing to connect to. That's part of the thesis. It's not a critique of the thesis. It's a statement of the thesis. So how do you falsify it?
Yeah, I explained it. You see this Proverbs? Like a dog that returns to its vomit. A fool does the same foolish things again and again. That's what you're doing.
I'm asking questions. All I'm doing is asking questions.
And
I'm asking you
a question, and then you like a dog returning to your vomit. You ask me the same question again and again, and you're like.
So the question is how do you know your mind isn't the only thing that exists? And
people who think they are wise when they are not are worse than fools. That's what that guy is. He had no idea what he's talking about, and he's not here to learn. He's here to go. I'm going to ask a question over and over and over. Welcome.
Hello there.
What would you like to say? Close in.
Okay. So I have first of all, thank you for letting me debate because I love debating and I'm just kind of bored. But I'd like to go through like all three points you have and just kind of like talk about them and like have our own like set standpoints also so that I can learn a little bit. And also I'm not quite familiar with Christianity as a whole, so if I do make mistakes, please correct me on that.
Oh, we're both on the same page there.
Alrighty. So your first point saying atheism is baseless and irrational is a little odd to me because human beings, I studied psychology a bit, and human beings, when they can't believe something, they tend to go to irrational decisions. And in this case would sort of be being an atheist when it comes to a god, right?
I'm not sure. Are you saying that being an atheist is irrational?
I'm saying that I somewhat agree, but there's some rationalism to it. Like, there's no such thing as a true atheist or a true Christian, because you can't fully be entirely sure of one's existence, because there's a lot of points pointing towards God being real, and a lot of points saying God is not real.
I think we can be the most certain of God's existence. Like, I don't think there's anything more certain than that. So I disagree.
I can see why you would think that, to be honest, but like, okay, so let's visualize God has to create a mountain that he cannot lift, right? However, if he were to do that and he couldn't lift it, he theoretically wouldn't be all-powerful. But if he couldn't do that, he still wouldn't be all-powerful. So there's a lot of loopholes within
But that's
God's mere existence.
that question is a contradiction. That's a nonsense question, and like we don't even define omnipotence that way. God can do anything. Like we don't think God can unalive himself. We don't think God can experience sin. So no one takes the position God can do anything.
You know what? That's actually a really valid point. I can't even lie. And then saying Christianity is objectively proven. I already said something involving that, like about how like there's points saying yes to it and points saying no to it, and you kind of you already have the idea on that one.
Oh yeah, well I have an objective proof for Christianity called the Transcendental Argument for God.
I'm kind of curious. Could you kind of explain like the objective proof towards God being real?
Yeah. So transcendental arguments, they're valid. You can look them up in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. They attempt to take a fact about our mental life, like the fact that we have knowledge, and then we ask the question like, what other fact would have to be true for us, this fact that we have knowledge to be true? And so we can show that like for any fact, knowledge claim to be true, God would have to be true. Like there's a necessary relationship between like God and facts or something. And so I could take any fact and show like, for this fact to be a fact, God has to make it a fact, basically. Not there's necessarily. And so then.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I see that. I just had a question, but it just completely left my brain. Shit. Oh, that's what it was. So in the Bible, do you believe that there are mistranslations?
No, we have like I think the Bible's like one of the most academically scrutinized texts. I think it is the most, and it's withstood the test of time. And we have thousands of manuscripts to verify translations, and they're all like consistent. They're like 99. I think Bonson said they're 98% accurate. There's just like scribal errors because of copying errors from writing things down wrong, but not like any attempt to change the meaning or something. They just interpret it differently throughout times. That's a different thing.
Alrighty. And then for your third point, saying science is impossible without God. I actually want to correct you on that one real quick.
Yeah.
It's actually considered to be math isn't possible without God. That's what it's considered to be. Because I kind of understand science, I kind of understand that one, but math just has so many connections to it within the Bible, and it overall just makes more sense to debate with like science isn't possible without God.
Are you saying I should put like math is impossible?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I could do both of them. I mean, I can show how science. Well, the thing I like to do science because a lot of people are really into science.
Yeah, there's a lot of people into science. I myself am taking chemistry right now, and it's really interesting. I like science, but
And I think it's
from what I've seen, math is a little more connected towards the Bible than science necessarily is.
Yeah, well, I would say like mathematical objects have like properties that we would consider divine. Like they're 1 + 1 = 2. That's like going to be true for it's always true. So it's eternal, and it's also universal. Like 1 + 1 = 2 is true in like every culture. Those are properties that we typically associate with the divine. So I think math would prove God because only God could explain math. So I agree with you on that.
All right. And then for something about like the science part, how much do you think science is reliant on God's existence?
Like 100%? It couldn't even get off the ground without God?
Okay, so you believe the entirety of science could not be proven without God?
Yes. Bertrand Russell.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a philosopher who's actually an atheist named David Hume. He came up with something called the problem of induction. Another atheist philosopher is like super smart. Like 100 years later, he said, "If we don't solve the problem of induction, then science is impossible." And he also said, like, we can't. This will never be solved because it's beyond like human abilities, and that's why we argue. Like, look, if there's these human limitations, why not listen to the authority of God's revelation, which would save science and make science possible, and it would save philosophy and make philosophy possible? And to deny God's revelation, it leads us to skepticism. Like, you can never defeat David Hume's arguments, which entail that we don't know anything. So it's like you either accept God's revelation as the authority, or you ultimately like don't know anything. That's kind of like the option the non-Christian's in.
All right. So, another question about the science one. Sorry, I'm asking so many questions, but if God didn't exist, would gravity exist? Would things like chemical reactions exist?
No, because those rely on like natural law, and a law is like another one of those things like math. Laws are universal, they're eternal, unchanging, immaterial. Wait, laws might not be eternal. Okay, scratch that. Laws aren't eternal. Never mind. The physical laws are eternal. The logical laws are the like mathematical, but like the physical laws are still they're still like universal, unchanging, and immaterial. And so God's like universal and unchanged. So you basically need God as like to explain anything that's like what we would consider universal, meaning that it like applies in all instances and circumstances. Like the law of gravity always applies no matter where you are on Earth. So that's universal.
Alrighty, I see.
So to get something like a universal, you need what we call a concrete universal. That meaning that it's like a concrete, meaning it's actual. Like God is an actual universal because God is omnipresent; He's everywhere. But like, there's nothing in the natural world that's universal. So if all we had was like the natural physical world, that's all that existed, you couldn't make sense of math, which are universals, or like laws of nature, which are universals.
Alrighty. Well, I don't really have much else to say, and honestly, since debates have winners and losers, I'm gonna just admit loss because I don't have much else to say.
No, man, we didn't really debate.
I don't have much else to say, to be honest. But
I don't think you're a loser, man. I thought you conducted yourself with maturity and respect. So I don't think you lost, man.
All right.
But I appreciate you coming, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
I hope I informed you. I tried my best.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome. Oh, there's Darth. The Dark Lord.
Dun 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 bum 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 bum.
I'm gonna do that next time. I'll bring you on. I don't know why I didn't think of that, Darth.
You didn't happen to hear my interaction with the atheist preacher, did you?
I just missed it, and then
what a piece of garbage. He had a young man who was very articulate from a Christian point of view, who I chatted with quite a bit afterwards on my stream. And atheist preacher who I've dealt with before, so he's quite familiar with me. When I came on, he started off really cordially, but then he moved to the tactic of tick off, piss off, and annoy Darth Dawkins by machine gun interrupting him, so that Darth gets pissed and leaves. Okay, and that's what his little scam was, and I confronted him that he's a phony. This faux cordiality. They only display cordiality like that when they think that they can verbally bamboozle their opponent. So when they realize that they can't verbally bamboozle me from their position, then they pull out their little disgusting little tactics.
Yeah, tonight I've actually had people been pretty like respectful, but I imagine that's going to change.
Yeah, that won't last long.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
just remember, if any time I'm capitalizing
yeah, no worries.
and you want me to step down, just say just say Dart, thanks for coming, and that'll be the signal for me
Yeah,
to
so
bow out because I don't want to overstay my welcome.
so I'm guessing he basically was just really immature and he left. Is pretty much what happened there.
No, he just decided to machine gun talk me,
Yeah.
and then to outright lie on the stream that he was just asking for clarification.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Welcome,
Welcome,
Kent.
Kent.
Hi.
Well,
Kent, do you accept God as your creator?
No, I don't believe in any God. In
Can
fact,
you
I would
tell
go
me?
as far as to say that there is no God under the same premise that religion identifies God as existing.
Okay, can you tell me why there's no God?
Well, it's, like I said, it's for the same reason that religion identifies there as being a God as existing. It's all anecdotal evidence
Oh,
that the
no, no, no,
entirety of
no, no,
religion.
no, no. Stop right there. You just really made a whopper of a mistake. Okay, so first of all, there are different approaches within different religions for establishing God's existence. So, for example, Christianity invokes the existence of God only by an appeal to God's revelatory actions of Himself. Now, does the not God world engage in revelatory actions of itself to you?
So your argument is saying that
I
you're
didn't make an
basically.
argument. I asked you a question.
Go ahead and ask me the question again.
I said, biblical Christianity stakes out the position that we invoke God because God has engaged in revelatory actions of Himself. So you said you're establishing the not God world under the same proviso for religion, and I take it Christianity. So how did the not God world uh, engage in revelatory actions that it exists with independence from God?
It's under the same premise that you're speaking. So you're saying that everything, you're
That's
basically,
not an answer.
it's not an answer. So you're
No,
saying
completely uninformative.
it's uninformative.
Yeah, I asked you a very simple question. Does the not God world engage in revelatory actions, thereby establishing its independence from God?
No,
Well, you've now contradicted yourself. Are you aware of that?
no. See, that's an argument from
No,
ignorance. If
sir,
you want to
no,
talk about
sir, sir,
fallacies,
sir. Look, now I know what I'm dealing with. Either you're purposely deceptive, or you're not competent to have this kind of conversation. Maybe because you're choosing not to focus.
so are you
You
capable of
stated,
having a
you
discussion that's not based
stated.
in
Are
fallacies?
you capable of listening to a criticism?
Are you
Are
capable
you
of not committing an ad hominem fallacy?
okay, sir? If you're gonna bicker with me like a teenager, I will teach you like a teenager.
Go ahead,
Okay.
teach me.
Goodbye. Okay, you want to have an adult conversation or not?
Yeah, let's talk about fallacies and how many you're committing
Okay,
right
all
now.
right, goodbye. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, little boy. You see, they can't help themselves. Okay. Notice how the either the inability or the refusal to actually focus on the content of what I presented to him, but then when he what comes out of his mouth doesn't bear resemblance to what I presented to him. Whew. Yeah. When you're old enough to shave and you grow a few more brain cells, then come and talk with me, okay? Acting like a snot-nosed teenager at the cafeteria table is not going to give you points, okay?
Hello, yeah.
Welcome, H. Do you accept God as your creator?
I don't.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Um, I don't think that there's enough evidence.
Okay. So when you say there's not evidence, is that the same as saying the world exemplifies independence from God?
No.
Oh, so the world exemplifies dependence upon God?
Mm,
Which is it? Either the world is emblematic of dependence upon God or derivation from God, or the world exemplifies being actual without derivation dependence upon God. Which is your position?
I don't know actually.
If one says that the world exemplifies independence from God, wouldn't that not be the equivalent that the world is not evidence of God? Wouldn't that be saying the same thing? Are you there? Did you die?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Did you
I'm thinking about it, but
To say there's no evidence for God is the same as saying the world entails independence from God.
yeah.
Okay, how did you determine that the world entails independence from God?
Because I don't know. I can see like
That
I can
okay?
see it.
So that's an appeal to ignorance fallacy, that the world entails independence from God because it hasn't been falsified. An
Mm-hmm.
appeal to ignorance fallacy is a proposition is true because it hasn't been falsified, or that rationales or evidence have not been presented to falsify the proposition in question. That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. So when you say the world is not evidence for God because evidence has not been presented that it does come from God, that's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Mm-hmm. And how does this prove that God is true?
The world proves God is true because the world exemplifies that which actualizes it. But that which actualizes the world could only implement that the world reflects and is emblematic of what actualizes it if and only if that which actualizes the world had the attributes of God. Now, I'm not saying the world reveals and is emblematic of God as an inference. I'm saying that the world reveals and is emblematic of God because God purposed that, and not as an because the alternative is to embrace an absurdity that the world does not reveal God, but then if the world doesn't indicate God, you don't have a single concrete causal first principle that is sustaining what is and cannot be. You see, when the world reflects God, God being a concrete entity is the single causal first principle that secures what is and cannot be. God would then secure and sustain states of unity, states, identity states. When you reject that and you talk about facts of the world, identity states, what secures these identity states or states of unity? What is the something else? Well, the answer is there is nothing. Nor could you give me anything that was defensible. So as a result, there is no world to speak of, because to speak of the world in whole or in part is going to require you to unpack that there are various levels of unity or identity within the system, from the smallest to the grandest scale. Well, then the question is, do these things, are they emblematic that there is something that imposes these states of unity, as opposed to that's just a fiction? To believe that something else other than God actualizes and imposes the various levels of unity in the world is to violate the very principle and criterion that you use to dismiss God as the creator and the ultimate unifier of everything in the world. So the non-acceptance of the presentation that the world indicates and reveals God and by his purpose results in a complete state of absurdity. So it would be irrational to reject that the world indicates dependence, derivation, and its origin in God as the single causal first principle. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's called a reductio ad absurdum. A reductio ad absurdum is the presentation, a positive presentation of a proposition that upon rejection, the rejection leads to absurdity or contradiction. So part of the proof for God is that after the positive presentation of how the world indicates and is emblematic of God and by God's purpose, that the very denial of that is rationally impossible. You can irrationally deny it, but you couldn't rationally deny it, because in order to rationally deny that the world reveals dependence derivation of God as the single causal first principle, then you'll be operating that something else is imposing the unity that's in the world at different scales. Well, what's the something else? And saying things like reality, the universe, science, physics, none of these would be a substantive answer. It would be a stopgap response that has no substance to it. So once you understand it framed that way, there's no rationally denying that the world reveals God. Or you will face absurdity of your own position, that something else accounts for the states of unity and diversity, the identity states in the world, but there's no something else to be identified and grounded for. You just can't talk about facts of the world just existing without final context. Let me give you an illustration. In your country, what number do you call to get the police?
133.
Okay, right. So in my country, it's 911.
Yeah. Yeah.
So suppose you call the police and you say, "I want to report a schmurder," and the dispatcher says, "Okay, where did this happen?" "I don't know." "All right, who committed the schmurder?" "I don't know." "When did this happen?" "I don't know." "How do you know about this?" "I don't know." "How long do you think it's going to take for the dispatcher to hang up?"
Immediately.
Why? Because I'm presenting a fact with no context.
Mm-hmm.
Giving me a chain of facts where the final frame of reference is "I don't know," then there are no facts at all to speak of. If it's all encompassed by "I don't know," you don't have a chain of facts.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're going to say, "I don't know" is what connects the dots. "I don't know" connects the dots. And then it would also mean "I don't know" actualizes each of the dots. Okay, what's "I don't know"? Well, "I don't know" is "I don't know."
What happens without the connections? You basically can't escape your own mind. You sort of get like, you start with your own mind and you get trapped in your mind.
You can't even do that, because your mind would represent a connectivity and a correlativity between the succession or chronology of what you consider to be your thoughts. So what would actualize the unity of the chronology of thoughts that you call your mind? So you couldn't even talk about your mind, because then what is it that would unify your mind? And what people will say when they don't have anything, go, "Oh, my brain." Okay, so now you're appealing to the regularity of nature. What is it that actualizes the uniformity of nature?
I was just thinking about, like Bonson says, when you have an egocentric starting point, you have an egocentric, you end up in an egocentric predicament.
Yeah. Well, it's what they'll do is they'll end up with "I think, therefore I am," but there's no "I am" to speak of, because what unifies what represents "I am" is "I am" the succession of your physical existence, the chronology of your thoughts. Good. What unifies that?
The I wouldn't have an identity, right? So like it's
No,
saying,
no. All you would have is an alleged unity of the successive succession of biological persistence over time and the chronology of one's mental states. Okay, what grounds the unity of succession?
So wouldn't I
Okay.
think therefore I am really just be like this thing I can't identify exists, and then like what would it mean to say this thing without
Well,
unexplained?
There have been a couple of different responses to I think therefore I am. James Anderson, whom I love, he's just utterly brilliant. I read somewhere where he gave a little bit of a defense for it. I don't quite agree, but what he has to say is not without substance or merit. My take upon it is this: is if we're going to invoke that there are states of unity or identity states, right? Then what actualizes these states of unity? If it is not the mind of God, then they're going to be operating from something else. Okay, SE. Something else is actualizing whatever states of unity or identity are invoked. So, what actualizes the unity or identity state of the I or the self?
Could we make it like a precept and say like I think therefore God is or something like that?
Well, it's funny you should say that because Van Til did respond to that. He said, "I think, therefore, the great I am." Van Til actually said that.
Oh, he left. I took something Kierkegaard said and I precept it where he said we don't reason to existence, we reason from existence. And Kierkegaard was arguing for fideism.
Yeah. Well, Van Til said the starting point, the method, and the conclusion all involve and depend upon each other.
Yeah. Well, I kind of thought Kierkegaard was onto something there, and I rephrased it where like we don't reason to the existence of God, we reason from God's existence.
Yeah, Kierkegaard was pretty smart, but I would be careful with him. He's not without problems.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't delineate that right now because I'm a bit rusty. I remember years ago having a number of conversations with my brother about Kierkegaard.
He's a good, like, I think, person to read because he provokes your thinking. So I kind of like authors that
Well, look, there are some times that even unbelievers who deny God, through rigorous introspection, can actually learn logical truths about God's creation, while stumbling on it, even though they're inconsistent.
Well, Kierkegaard was a Christian, right?
Well,
or you don't think so?
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm just saying the jury's out on that one, as far as I'm concerned.
I gotcha.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not willing to change my mind. I would just be careful with that. I would actually try to do a search on anything that Bonson said on Kierkegaard or Van Til, and that'll give you a good analysis. Backyard, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why?
I just never really kind of was able to buy into the whole biblical narrative. Like, I wasn't able to really buy into like a creation story, and I've never really had like anxiety around death. So like the idea of nothingness after life really has never bothered me. So I've just never really had a reason to.
What you're doing is what most unbelievers do when asked to give an account for the not God world. You're not actually accounting for the not God world. You're just giving us a testimony of what is called incredulity. Golly shucks, I'm unconvinced. Being unconvinced is not a grounding that God doesn't exist.
I mean, like for me, the way that I rationalize it is like, there's a ton of things that I do or I don't do. There's a ton of ways of life that I can operate on or with. And
Yeah,
that
you're
is
not really
based,
responding to what I said.
well, no, I am. I understand what you're saying.
Is it your position that God does not exist, which would be a proposition external to yourself, or is your response that you're not asserting the falsity of God, Rather you're invoking a state of being unconvinced or incredulity.
As far as the Christian God goes, I do not think there's a Christian God.
Did I, sir? I didn't ask you that.
All right, there's no God. There's no God. Then there's no God.
Okay. Well, now we're back to square one again. Tell me why there's no God.
I have no reason to believe in a God. There's no reason or no evidence around me to believe.
Okay. So that's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Okay, that a proposition is true because it hasn't been falsified. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay, listen to me. Is a proposition true until it's falsified?
Yeah. No.
Okay, that's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Logically, there are recognized formal and informal fallacies. An appeal to ignorance fallacy is a recognized fallacy. An appeal to ignorance fallacy is to assert that a proposition is true without a positive defense, and to assert that it's true because it hasn't been falsified. To say God does not exist because I don't have a reason to believe he exists is an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Number two, it's also an appeal to incredulity. God doesn't exist because I'm unpersuaded. How would God's existence depend ontologically upon your mental state? It wouldn't. So telling me that you don't have a reason to believe God exists is just an expression of incredulity and doesn't ground that God doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, there's like a ton of claims about God, right? There's a lot of claims about God that we can look at and say, okay, like we know this didn't happen. We know A, B, and C did not happen.
Do you have a rationale that no creator God exists?
I mean, I don't have a rationale that says that one does exist, so I don't operate like one does. And I know you're going to say that's an appeal to that.
So I'm not getting a clear answer. Do you have a clear rationale that God does not exist?
Yes.
Can you give it, please?
All claims that I've heard about God seem to be false.
That is an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
If all of the facts based on the existence of a thing seem to be false.
Listen to me carefully. I'm going to quote
I'm listening.
I'm going to give you a quotation from a preeminent atheist philosopher. Okay? Kai Nielsen, K-A-I, Kai Nielsen, was selected to write the atheist entry for the Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy. He's also written a number of books on philosophy and atheism. Okay?
I know who he is.
Oh, okay. So Kai Nielsen wrote a book on philosophy called Reason and Practice.
Yes.
And he said, all of the reasons for God given may fail, but it still can be the case that God exists. That somebody uses faulty reasoning to a conclusion just because all of the prior reasonings you reckon to be faulty, it doesn't logically necessitate that the conclusion is false.
So do you want to hear like why I kind of like don't vibe kind of with that
Did you understand how?
Yes, I understood, but I'm trying to explain why.
I know that. I'm trying to make a point here. I've just demonstrated that your reasoning is a fallacy. Do you accept that?
Can I explain like why I'm saying what I'm saying?
I asked you a question.
Yes, I understand it, but can I explain myself after?
Okay, sir, you're being uncooperative at this point. Do you accept the critique of your reasoning?
Yes.
Do you accept that the critique is that your reasoning is a fallacy?
Yes.
Okay, then you're going to have to give me another rationale why God doesn't exist.
Okay, so again, why I'm explaining myself is because you asked at the beginning of this, do I accept God as my creator? Right? That was your question. That was the first question, right?
I'm waiting for you to give me
You asked me to accept. I answered the original question.
Please don't be rude. Okay,
I'm not.
I'm about to mute your microphone, about to kick you because you're being uncooperative. See, this is a tactic that people pull when they run out of slogans and cliches for atheism, they become uncooperative. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time, without repeating what you have said prior, because none of what you have said prior holds water. So, explain to me why God does not exist.
I am answering the first original question was, do I accept God as my creator? That was the
Sir, you're
question.
not focusing.
I
Are you
am.
recovering from the flu?
No,
Okay, so focus. I want you to explain to me, without repeating what you have said prior, why God does not exist.
because I am being asked to accept something, right? So the idea
You're
of
not answering
acceptance,
my question. You're not answering the question. You
I'm
must be recovering from the flu.
no,
Because I
I
can't
am.
imagine that you would
Can
be
I?
so devious. I can't
What?
imagine that you would be so uncooperative to pull out the uncooperative card in order to be evasive. Now, we're
I'm
going to
not.
try this one more time. I want you to explain to me, without any preamble or filibustering, explain to me right now why there is no God.
There is no God because the world does not reflect that there is a God.
Okay, now, does the world reflect and entail independence from God?
Yes,
How did you determine that?
because it does not reflect the God.
You're making the same claim again without justifying it.
If the world is self-actualized, because I listened to your argument from before about
Oh, okay. So now
self-actualization and the
now
actualization.
we're making progress. So
All right, so
every
when we're talking,
discrete, yeah. So every
can I
discrete
finish what I was saying?
sir. I'm not having trouble focusing here. Okay. Now I'll be brief. So your position is that every now I'll be brief. So your position is that every member of the set of the world is self-actualizing and independent from God?
Yes.
How did you determine that?
Based off of your argument from the last guest.
I am waiting for you to give me an informative answer instead of a stall, dodge, and delay tactic.
So
How
if the
how did
world,
you
in your
determine
worldview,
how,
if the
sir, we're
world is
not talking about
actualized
my
by
worldview.
God,
Sir, stop. You're being uncooperative. I want you to explain to me
I am
how
cooperating.
any sir, don't overtalk me. The reason why I'm interjecting is because you're filibustering at this point. I want you to explain to me why any state of affairs exists with complete independence from God, and I want specificity.
Because the concepts of strong emergence. So, for instance, if we're going to talk about things like strong and weak emergence, right, and we're going to talk about it, a weak and emergent property, we're going to see the fact that a object that is
Okay, sir,
actualized will have the can I finish my
stop.
answer? Will have
No,
the
no, no. I
traits.
want you to stop. I want you to stop. Listen, how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, I'm 63. How effing stupid do you think I am to take seriously the bullshit that just came out of your mouth talking about emergence? You did all you spoke about are generalities. I want you to give me specificity how any state of affairs, okay? An electron that is halfway between here and the visible edge of the universe, how does that exist with ultimate independence from God?
I mean, you would have to be like
I'm not hearing a clear answer with specificity. How did you determine? Okay, can you
right. So
name for
a
me
particle
what?
moves.
Can you?
A particle moves through space.
Okay, hey, listen. You're 30 years old and you're giving me a filibuster response like a teenager. It doesn't work with me. I'm more than double your age. Okay, I'm not easily verbally
Well, you're not really
bamboozled
letting
by
me
empty
answer.
rhetoric. No, I'm interrupting you because you're filibustering. You're not answering my question.
I'm not filibustering.
You are filibustering because you did not specify with clarity, other than vague generalizations about emergence. How did you determine that any state of affairs metaphysically exists? What state of affairs exists with independence from God, and how did you determine that it is absolute, invariant, and eternal?
Strong nuclear force, for instance, being
Dude,
able to bond.
don't insult my intelligence, sir.
You're asking for an answer, and I'm
How
giving you the
is
answer.
this? Look, is the strong and weak nuclear force eternal and without beginning?
Uh, no, it has a beginning, and that was where I was
Good,
going with it.
good. Therefore, why did it come into existence? If it began to
Because there's
exist itself, so did it pop into existence from nothing?
no, because I don't believe that there is ever a nothing.
Okay, sir. So here's the point. You're just giving me rhetoric that would impress a 15-year-old. It doesn't work
No,
on
this
somebody. Sir, listen to me. I'm really getting irritated with you. Your rhetoric would work on a fifth grader. It doesn't work on somebody who's twice your age.
just because you're saying sir doesn't mean that you're being
Goodbye.
polite. You're
Goodbye. 30 years old going on 17, thinking he can bamboozle me with non-specific, vague generalizations filled with a little bit of nomenclature from science. Oh, the strong and nuclear force shows that it's independent from God. Really? How?
I love how they throw in these like scientific terms randomly into their like sentences to think it like adds validity to what they're saying.
Yeah. No, he's lit. Look, I become indignant when people like him think that they're going to bullshit me with empty rhetoric that is non-substantive. They know it's non-substantive. It's just empty rhetoric that would fool a fifth grader. So I think the fact that I'm double his age means that I know a little bit more about life than he does.
I think
Okay?
we need to do a live or a couple, maybe like for a whole week, do lives about the difference between answer and a response, because we
They don't care. Talking to me about emergence, talking to me about the strong and weak nuclear force. Look, he knew it was a bullshit response. I know it. The audience knows it's a bullshit response. He's just stalling for time. He's pretending he's giving a substantive answer when he knows it's unvarnished bullshit.
I think there are a lot of fools in the audience that when a person just throws in like scientific nomenclature that they just that's so they just like think the person's like being legitimate or something.
Yeah.
Welcome, Aaron.
Hello. Hello.
What would you like to say?
Do you accept God as your creator?
What?
Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Tell me why there's no God.
I didn't say there was no God.
Okay, are you presenting to us that you're in a neutral position where you are simply unconvinced?
Not unconvinced. More of there's
Is
no.
it your position? Is it your position that God does not exist?
Say that again.
Yeah, it's not a good idea to go on TikTok when you're recovering from the flu. Bye. Yeah, you're not coming up here, backyard. They think by throwing in some scientific nomenclature that I'm just going to go, wow, this guy's so profound. You're not saying anything, okay? When you sit there and talk about the strong and weak nuclear force, is the strong and nuclear force, are they absolute? Are they eternal? He said that the world is self-actualizing. So that would mean that every discrete state of identity and unity is self-actualizing. So in order to be self-actualizing, those discrete states of identity or unity would have to be absolute and eternal and without beginning. Oops.
Right. Yeah, and I understand you. So I
How
understand
do
you.
you say your name? Oh, John Doe. So,
You can just
John, do you
you can just call
accept
me
God?
Gio.
Yeah. Well, I'll just call you John. So, John, how do you accept God as your creator?
Yes, I do. And can I tell you my perspective, please?
Are you a Muslim?
No, I'm not Muslim.
Okay. Are you a Christian?
I accept or I believe I'm a follower of Jesus.
Okay. Can you keep it brief because we want to talk with unbelievers?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I can we just look at from how beautiful life is, from where, like, in life everyone has a purpose and a value, and at the end of the day, people are going to meet their truth and value. It's a concept of where in life everything has a creator or a rebirth, and so if everything has a creator or a rebirth, before creation is made or order is
Does
ordered.
God? Does everything has a creator? What about God?
Yeah, including God.
Okay. Goodbye. Yeah. Nate, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
No, personally, I don't.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
So, to me, there is no evidence to point towards a God.
How did you determine the world's independent of God?
There's no reason for me to have to determine that, as
That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Towards God, either.
You've just committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy that a proposition is true because it hasn't been falsified.
So
You're
have you by
asserting.
believing in
I want you to listen.
religion.
Focus. Listen. Focus.
You focus and listen.
Bickering does not make you look good in a discussion and a debate. Telling me that the world is independent of God solely on the grounds that it hasn't been falsified is an appeal to ignorance fallacy in logic and philosophy. Are we clear?
Not quite. I don't quite understand
An
what you mean.
appeal to ignorance fallacy.
No, I don't need you to repeat it. I need you to
Okay.
explain. I understood. I heard the words.
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
Telling me the world is independent of God because it hasn't been falsified is an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Has it been falsified?
Wow, you're not really focusing.
Do you know what
today,
falsified
are you?
means?
Okay,
Do you know what falsified means?
Have a nice day, little boy.
Do you know what it means?
Okay. Wow. Where do they grow these people? All right. Well, you're on thin ice, Kent. So we'll have you up here again.
Am I?
So you
You
better
should
be.
see the
Yeah,
messages I left on your accounts.
You better be on your best
You should
behavior.
probably
Okay?
stop committing all these fallacies. You fucking
Okay.
retard.
What? Okay. I'm gonna humor you just to
Oh,
humiliate you.
humor.
What? Okay. If you interrupt
I
me,
had to kick him. He said the R word. I had to kick him.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. No, you're not coming up here, Kent. When you act like an imbecile 15-year-old, we're going to treat you like an imbecile 15-year-old. Yeah, don't send another invite, Can't Stop, or you're going to get blocked. Okay? Welcome, Imago Dei. You accept God as your creator?
I do. I don't know how I got put on here. I was just listening, and then it said I had a request.
It's been an accidental invite that happens sometimes.
Accidental.
Yeah, sometimes like the button will come up and you can press it.
Yeah, TikTok is not sending their intelligent skeptics. Welcome, M. Do you accept God as your creator?
Okay. What was that, sorry?
Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Because there's no proof. The only proof that you guys have is a
so
book.
when you say there's no proof, are you saying the world exemplifies independence from God?
I'm saying that there is no God and there wasn't ever
Is
a God.
is the world as it presented to you not proof of God in that it exemplifies independence from God?
Yes.
How did you determine that the world in whole or in part exists with independence from God?
Because it was made by science, the Big Bang and everything.
And I've got some bad news for you. The Big
Yeah.
Bang is not a discovery. The Big Bang is not a fact. The Big Bang is a model of cosmogony. Models of cosmogony have come and gone throughout time. Okay? So even if I were to agree with you that the Big Bang were true, right, it wouldn't follow from that God doesn't exist. And in fact, one of the world's most preeminent Christian apologists, William Lane Craig, who has 2 earned PhDs, uses the Kalam cosmological argument as a centerpiece for his argument for the existence of God. So do you want to explain to me how the Big Bang logically entails that there's no God?
Because it's how the world was created without God.
And
God has
who?
nothing to do
Okay,
with
you're
anything.
asserting. Okay, sir, did you read that in a book?
No, I kind of just
Oh,
looked it up on the internet one day.
and who was there to see that?
Nobody who's ever seen God.
Well, then how do you know? Well, guess what? You've just screwed yourself because you just laid out a principle that if you don't see it, then it doesn't exist. Since
Okay,
nobody
have you?
saw that, listen. Do you realize what you just? I don't think you realize what just happened. You just said if you can't see it, it's not there.
No.
Okay. Are you saying that because you can't see God, therefore no God?
I'm saying that even if there was a God, screw him. I wouldn't like him anyway.
I'm not trying to be rude, but you really need to focus. Invoking the Big Bang doesn't logically necessitate God doesn't exist. So you're going to have to do better and explain to me why God doesn't exist.
Okay. No, so I have to prove that God doesn't exist. Why don't you have to prove that God does exist?
Sir, I asked you to explain your
Sir!
position. Since I asked you to explain your position, the reason why you're trying to shift the responsibility on me about my view, I'm more than happy to defend my view. But the reason why you're abandoning your defense of the not God world is because you've reached a dead end. Okay? Have you
No, I
reached a
haven't.
dead... Good, then give me the reason why there's no God.
I think that the burden of proof
You're
should
doing it
be
all over again.
onto the
You're doing it all
person
over. Okay,
that
have a
fully
nice day.
believes in it. I don't
Okay,
believe in it.
you know what? The flu must be going around and being very severe this year. See, this is what happens when they're comfortable in giving their rationales for the not God world. They'll do it. The moment they get outsmarted and they realize that what they're saying doesn't hold water, they immediately go, "You're shifting the burden of proof." When they meet absolute failure to rationally justify the non-existence of God, they pull out the get out of jail free card, which is you're shifting the burden of proof card. Okay? Whenever they say you're shifting the burden of proof, they're now waving the white flag of surrender, that they no longer have a intelligent rationale that God doesn't exist. And now when they say we're shifting the burden of proof, they're now smuggling in that their position simply represents a neutral territory and that the existence of God is a novel overlay and uniquely has the responsibility of being accounted for, and that their position doesn't have a responsibility to account for itself. But to say that we're shifting the burden of proof is to contradict herself, because earlier she gave an attempt at a rational refutation of God's existence. The moment those rationales failed miserably, then the shifting of burden of proof card gets pulled out. Well, if I'm shifting the burden of proof, why did you attempt 2 or 3 times to explain the non-existence of God? Why didn't you pull out the burden of proof shifting card in the very beginning? You only pull that card out as an act of desperation because you no longer have any ammunition. Welcome, Joe. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do not.
Can you tell me why God does not exist?
First, I just want to make sure my audio is coming through okay. I've never been on a live before.
If you could get closer to your microphone, it would make it better.
There's a little echo. Here, let me turn off Bluetooth real quick. How's that sounding?
Better.
Cool. All right, so sorry, please repeat your question.
Please explain to me why there's no God.
So the gist of it would be I've yet to be provided any legitimate, realistic evidence for one.
That's not a rationale for God's existence. That's a bait.
I don't see why.
Look, sir, I've been doing this for 14 years. I've interacted with probably a couple of thousand atheists. I know all the talking points, the slogans, the talking points. Telling me I've yet to be persuaded is just an invocation of your mental state, okay? So we're going to go through this slowly and methodically.
Please.
When you say, I have yet to be presented with evidence to convince me, are you invoking your mental state?
As far as I can tell, no.
You're not invoking your mental state when you say, I have yet to be presented with evidence to believe?
I mean, in an obscure way, I guess.
Are you this, look, I'm going to sound a little rude here. Are you this slow? To say, I have yet to be presented with evidence, you're invoking your mental state that you're unconvinced due to an absence of information.
Okay, fair enough. I'll get behind you on that.
Right. So how would God's existence depend on your mental state?
It does not, but...
That's right. So therefore, saying you've yet to be persuaded is not a rationale that God does not exist. So what you've done classically is what atheists do. You bait and switch. You identify with atheism, you identify with the denial of God, but then when you're asked to give an account for why there's no God, you shapeshift to, oh, I'm just unconvinced.
So then can you explain why I should believe without any legitimate evidence?
I'll be glad to do that when we resolve the question at hand as to why you deny God. That's the opening question that I asked you, wasn't it?
Okay, fair enough. So if that reason is not solid, I can provide another one.
Hold on a second. I got to go AFK. Hold on.
Sure. What's up, live? How we doing?
Okay, continue. Go ahead. You were saying?
So first I'd like to clarify, just to be certain that we're talking about the same thing.
Hold
when
on.
we say God,
1 second.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I was talking to somebody in the house.
You're fine.
So, explain to me why there's no God.
So again, I'd like to clarify just that we are talking about the Christian God, omnipotent, benevolent.
Sir, I want you to tell me as an atheist why there's no God.
May I clarify?
I don't want you to clarify. I want you to explain why there's no God.
Okay.
You are an atheist, right?
I am.
Good. Explain to me why there's no God.
All right. So, presuming we're talking about the Christian God,
Are you recovering from the flu?
I do have a bit of a cold at the moment, but I'm trying.
Okay.
to
Maybe that
okay.
explains it. Maybe your eustachian tubes are clogged up and you're having trouble hearing. I want you to explain to me why there's no creator.
And I would like to finish a sentence.
Yeah, if you start talking about the Christian God, you're baiting and switching. We'll try one more time. Explain to me why there's no God.
I no longer wish to engage with somebody who is incapable of taking a sentence.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he realized that he had no ammunition. So rather than surrender, he says, "Hey, time to quit." Right?
Hey, what's up, guys? I wanted to ask about the states of affairs. So, when you say that all states of affairs exist with dependence on God, are you saying that God is not only responsible for all states of affairs that are and cannot be, but God is also responsible for how all states of affairs play out and the conclusions
Yeah.
that those?
So when we're dealing with skeptics, atheists, regardless of their academic background, intelligence, or whatever, they're not. They recognize that they deny God, but then when they're called on the table, called upon to defend us, they shapeshift from God deniers to golly shucks, I'm unconvinced. Okay, and that there's insufficient reason to accept or affirm God. Okay? Now, when we speak about things of the world, regardless of who we are, the propositions we invoke will either be spoken with reference to God or without, explicitly or implicitly. If we speak of propositions directly or indirectly with reference to the necessity of God, we will be acknowledging and affirming God. If we choose, by an act of our will, to speak without referencing the necessity of God explicitly, then we will be denying God, regardless of the fact that one may protest that they're merely unconvinced and not denying God. Okay?
Okay. So, like, do you think that any states of affairs have any level of autonomy or independence from God, like the states of affairs that have other agents with their own free will, intentions, and yeah?
When we speak propositions and facts, there will always be either an explicit or an implicit worldview frame of reference. So we will always be speaking like the sky is blue, that will reference directly or indirectly the autonomy and the supremacy of God of all things, or not. So if you choose to invoke propositions without referencing the necessity of God, that constitutes the denial of God, whether or not the individual admits it.
Would you say that God? Would you say that people's intention, their will, and things like that are those things? Do those things just like? So can a person have an intention, a preference, a will that God did not intend for them to have?
You can repeat the question.
So God is an agent just like us. We have our own plans, desires, feelings, intentions, just like God. Can we intend to do anything that God did not intend for us to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called sin. It's called sin.
Okay. Can states of affairs, especially that include agents, can they play out in a way in which God did not intend for it to?
Well, it's a kind of vague question. So God has his sovereign will, which will come to pass and cannot be otherwise. Then God has a permissive will. So it is God's will that I not kick the guy on the sidewalk in the shins. But he will permit me to do so within the course of his plan of creation and redemptive history.
Okay. So ultimately, God's goal and aim will be achieved, but small little states of affairs.
God's sovereign will will come to pass, period. That's it. It will come to pass.
Okay.
But there's a difference between God's sovereign will versus his permissive will.
Okay.
They're stated many times in the Bible, and the Bible makes it very clear. There's God's sovereign will, and whatever he sovereignly wills, it cannot fail to come to pass. But then there's his permissive will, which he allows agents to defy his permissive will
Okay.
up until Judgment Day.
Okay. Do you before God created any agents, the angels and all that, did God know what because a lot of people say pride is the root of sin, right? Before God created any agents, did he know what pride was? Or was that a foreign concept to him?
Who are you speaking about?
So because like if from the Christian worldview, the reason why all of this is happening is because Lucifer fell. So before God created Lucifer, did he know what sin, what pride was, or was that a foreign concept to him?
A foreign concept? Who is him?
God. Before he created Lucifer, did he know like what pride and sin was, how these things could affect agents?
God knew in his foreknowledge what would come to pass. God did not know of sin or rebellion in the sense that it wasn't actualized yet. But God knew in his mind that it can be.
That it was a possibility?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, we're gonna move on. We want to talk with unbelievers. Thank you.
One more question.
All right. Let's see. All right. If you're an intelligent unbeliever, we'd love to talk with you. We don't want people coming up on the stage being prevaricators, obfuscating, rabbit trailing, being evasive, shape-shifting from an atheist to an agnostic and then back and forth in order to skirt your responsibility to explain your model of reality. Welcome to my mute button, Eric. Yeah, let's see. Hey, Way Shower, come on up. I sent you an invite, Way Shower, and defend your statement that if God knew they would eat the fruit, that's dumb. Come on up, Way Shower. Let's see, Way Shower, if you're really sincere or you're just a punk teenager shooting your mouth off in the chat. Oh, look at that. He's not coming up.
He asked to come up.
Oh, I invited him and he didn't come up. Okay, so Way Shower, if God knew that they were going to eat the fruit, how is that dumb?
Because he has foreknowledge.
How does is that it? I'm waiting for you to explain to me how that's dumb.
God has foreknowledge. If God has foreknowledge, then why did he let Adam and Eve eat the apple?
Oh, okay. So now you're shirking your responsibility to defend what you asserted. All you're simply doing is you're asking a question, but you're not explaining how God deciding to allow people to rebel when he knew some of them will rebel, that's dumb on his part. You haven't explained that in the least. Would you care to?
Do I have to? I don't want to argue with you. I just see this as
are you dumb?
This is
like
just entertainment to me.
Are you dumb like you say God is?
Are you? Are you?
Okay, I guess the one calling God dumb. Yeah, dude, you're calling God dumb, but
I'm just listening to it for entertainment.
Goodbye, get out of here. Yeah, another No intelligence, God hater. Well, God's dumb because he knew Adam and Eve were going to rebel and he let them do it. That's dumb. Okay, explain why it's dumb.
Well, come on, Darth. Let's steel man this. Let's be fair. So God is dumb because he knows things. I mean, that follows, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
Well, at least he came up.
I just want to ask one question about do you think there's any possible world in which Lucifer could not have fallen?
Yeah, you're using a different account now. Bye.
All right.
The same this guy every time.
Y'all can hear me? Everything's good?
Yeah, you got a lot of background noise.
Yeah, I know. It's where I'm at. It's where I'm located. But
Sounds like a great party. Can you give me the address? I'd like to come.
It's a Taco Bell at a truck stop.
Okay, well, is
right.
food good?
So, I haven't. I'm still waiting on my order. But to help the explanation, so God creates, right? God created us all, right? And He also has.
Look.
Hold on.
Listen to me.
Wait. Just before you get into your rant.
Of moderation here. Do you want me to kick you?
You can. I don't give a shit. Like this is. You're not. You're just proving a point.
Bye. Enjoy your tacos. A lot of failed parents out there raise little animals. There are a lot of parents out there that failed to civilize their children, and then they show up on TikTok.
I think your assertiveness attracts teenage males who lack product.
Ignorant, dumb, aggressive, and obnoxious teenagers trapped in adult bodies.
You're kind of like a Jordan Peterson figure.
No, I must admit. So, for example, when I was talking with Atheist Preacher, he was doing his best Academy Award-winning performance of being Mr. Cordial, friendly atheist next door to one interlocutor. But when I came on, he decided to pull out all the guns and the firepower and machine gun interrupt me so that I would get pissed. And then he could pull, don't run away. You see what slime bags they are? Slimier when they pull the they pull the Mr. Cordial routine trying to win their Emmy Award for acting. And then they show their dark side, that they're not really cordial. Come on up, Jewel, and explain that's exactly what I've done. Come on up, explain that.
I think I tried to talk to that atheist preacher guy. I remember him being highly immature when I talked to him.
Yeah, why is it that I can't invite some people? Is it because they don't have enough followers?
I'm not sure. Did you see HD? Did you ask Jules to come up?
I clicked on Jules' name and there's no
I don't.
There's no name or no people.
It's probably a glitch.
All right. Now, you just said that dude was an ass. A bad, immature for constantly cutting people off.
Hold on a second. Hold on. What are you accusing me of?
You've cut off every single person that's come through here. You haven't let anybody finish their sentences.
Okay. Now, do you know why I did that?
See, it doesn't matter. You're not asking why he did it.
Sir? Do you know why I do that?
But the thing is, you're not asking why he did it either. You're just saying that once again, he's an asshole for doing it.
Are you okay? Did your parents fail to raise a civilized child to grow into adulthood?
Look, it's crazy that a 60-year-old man keeps talking about parents. You grew up in the fucking 40s.
You're not being civilized right now.
Y'all were the worst generation ever lived. Like, you have not been civilized. You have been everything but civilized to everybody that's come on this planet.
Who is to blame more, your mom or dad or both of them for not civilizing you?
Whoever the fuck you want to blame.
Well, that's I have to do so. I mean, maybe
whoever you feel like blaming is good. Like,
Bye.
Exactly.
Bye, uncivilized one. Bye. The reason why you hear me interrupt is not as a tactic or a strategy to be verbally disruptive. It's because they're not answering my simple questions. It's not because I don't like what I'm hearing. They're literally not answering my questions, and they're going yada, yada, yada. And since I've been doing this for 14 years, I no longer put up with people pretending and doing an Academy Award winning performance that they're addressing my question when they're not. I'm not going to have people waste my time. Okay? So if I ask a reasonable, clear question, and they start talking, and what comes out of their mouth does not bear resemblance to the specific question I ask, I'm going to interject. I'm going to interrupt. And as a matter of moderation, not as a matter of a strategy of disruption.
Yes, if we were in like a formal debate setting, a moderator would like make someone answer a question, or like the debater would like keep pressing the person to answer the question.
Daniel, come on up and explain how I'm guilty of double standard. Come on up, Daniel. Explain to me how I'm guilty of a double standard.
Sure. Well, I think that a prime example of it is the issue that you take very openly with people cutting you off or speaking over you, whilst you yourself do it almost every single time someone is trying to converse with you.
Were you not listening to me?
I just answered the question that you asked you because I'm listening.
Were you not listening to what I just said before you came up?
You said that you were moderating people not as a something, but not as a strategery, which I'm not sure what a strategery is, but as a point of moderation. But it's
a strategery is a George Bushism for strategy.
Okay, got it. That's very helpful. So either way, it doesn't change the
what
fact
did I?
that-
Okay,
so are you doing it right now?
let's see. Hold on.
You're doing it right now.
Let's see. No, I'm actually not. I'm making a point of moderation.
You're not speaking.
Now,
I'm speaking.
I want you to repeat, sir. Now what you're doing is you're being disruptive.
I think
Now,
that you're.
I want you, sir. I'm talking as a point of moderation. That's the multiple time you're being disruptive. Now, I want you to explain back to me. How did I explain why I interrupt? What did I say?
Well, generally speaking, you tend to accuse people of being quote unquote immature or quote unquote childish.
Is that what I said? Is that what I said?
There's like some sort of obsession.
Is that what I said?
You're still blocking me off.
Is that what I said?
You can choose to keep.
Is that what I said? Okay, guess what? You're doing exactly what I said earlier that you can't even repeat back to me what I said. I'll try one more time. I'll try one more time. Being verbally disruptive and laughing like you're a drunken sailor doesn't make you look good.
It's very difficult to respond when someone is speaking over you.
Yeah, you failed to support your claim that I have a double standard. You can't even repeat back to me accurately what I said, why I interrupt them. You start talking about me impugning them as being immature and childish. That's not what I said. Okay?
Debate isn't like you just get to get up here and like preach to us. You have to like actually answer our questions.
I stated I interrupt not for the purpose of a strategy of verbal disruption to interfere with their ability to make a case. I interrupt with cause because when they start speaking, they're not addressing the question that I asked.
They think like debate is their time to tell us their like life biography or like some fancy space story or something, and they just completely ignore what we present.
when you've been doing this for 14 years on a daily basis like I have, you learn very quickly, and especially over the years, that people who are incompetent and inept to debate these issues, when they are asked clear and salient questions that will expose the bankruptcy of their position, what they will tend to do is pretend to answer, but then just start babbling on some semi-related issue, pretending that they're answering the question at hand, but they're not answering the question at hand. So why, after all these years, should I just sit there back there, scratch my behind, pick my nose, and listen to them ramble when they're not addressing the question I asked? Matthew, you're muted for trolling. Okay?
I'm sorry, what?
Someone else in the chat.
Oh, yeah, apologies.
There's somebody who's trolling in the chat. Okay? We have a lot of parents that are absolute miserable failures for not civilizing their little boys and girls who grow up to be young adults and they can't behave civilized on TikTok. And then they get upset because I, like a dad, don't put up with their disgusting adolescent behavior. Hyde, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do not.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
I don't have any definitive proof. I'm not really here to try to sway anybody's opinions or change anybody's minds. I'm
not asking you to sway me. I'm asking you, is your God denialism rational?
I'd love to be able to finish my thought. So as I was saying, I don't feel that there is, I've asked for help a lot of times in my life. I'm not here to throw out a sob story, but I feel that's very childish. Please allow me.
No, I'm getting a point across. Did I ask you for your testimony?
You asked why, and you asked a question.
Did I ask you?
I'm trying to answer it. Please act like an adult.
Is English your first language?
Please act like an adult.
Is English your first language?
It is, sir. Please act like an adult and allow me to
Since
speak.
English is your first language, okay. Did I ask you for your testimony?
I'm not providing a testimony. Please act like an adult and allow me to speak, sir.
You most certainly were.
Sir, please.
Were you answering my question, explaining to me?
Sir.
Do you have a rationale for? Okay, so another example.
Please act like an adult and allow me to speak.
So here we have another example of a failed mommy and daddy who failed to civilize their young boys, and this is what they grow up to be like. Okay. No, you're not coming up here.
We already talked to this Andy guy. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing how uncivilized they will conduct themselves, right? And they think by being uncivilized that they're actually on the warpath of righteousness. They're righteousness crusaders against the evil Darth Dawkins. Okay. Holding people accountable to answer the question that I asked, whether I agree with the content or not, is entirely reasonable of me. If people are going to prevaricate, obfuscate, dodge, filibuster, I'm going to interrupt them and call them out for BSing me. And just answer the question. Stop wasting my time. Yeah, neither one of you are coming up.
Hello?
Ahoy.
Yeah, I was just listening to that last guy, and it's amazing how they accuse you of what they're doing. He's being childish by evading a perfectly legitimate question, and you are acting like an adult by holding him to account, and then he feigns that you're holding him to account, which is acting like an adult, is not acting like an adult. It's amazing.
Look, and it's really weird how we come across the children and the offspring of parents who are miserable failures to civilize their children. You know, at least one parent would succeed where the other fails in turning their children, teaching them to conduct themselves in a civilized debate.
They have a lot of bad influences because the way most people like conduct their debates and their streams, it's just like an Animal House. So.
The movie Animal House had far more examples of civilized behavior than what we see
How about
here on TikTok.
monkeys flinging?
I think it is an insult, and I take umbrage with you insulting the characters and the actors of Animal House to compare them to the uncivilized, knuckle dragging troglodytes who show up in hordes on TikTok.
I was more thinking of like monkeys throwing poop at each other.
One more thing on that last guy. I will say I believe he did answer the question at the very start. He essentially admitted he does not have rational justification for his denial of God. So it's an irrational position.
Yes, he did. He did essentially admit it, but I asked him the question for clarification purposes, so it was clear he was admitting that he is irrationally saying God doesn't exist.
Why would someone hold to a position that they acknowledge is irrational? Why would a human being do that?
Well, what happened if we could look into our crystal balls, we could see going back when this teenager trapped in an adult body was 9 years old. His mommy and daddy sat him down and said, "Listen, one day there's going to be something called the internet, and there's going to be social networks, and sometimes there's going to be live conversations and debates. And we just want to tell you that it's okay for you to act like a complete uncivilized monkey. Okay? So when that time comes and you want to behave like a poop throwing, feces kicking monkey, that mommy and daddy say, go for it."
I like it when they give their atheist testimony and they're like, "I was a Christian and then I read the Bible." That's like this mic drop moment.
Hello.
Oh yes, reading the Bible made me an atheist.
Hello?
Hello, how do you say your name?
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah, do you accept God as your creator?
Okay, so I do, but I just wanted to tell you I feel like there's better ways you could be saying.
Aaliyah, how old are you, Aaliyah?
Okay, I'm 17 years old, and I don't want to hear about how I'm too young and uneducated.
Aaliyah, I'm not going to say that. Okay? Hold on a second. Hold on. Aaliyah, what I will say to you is this. Look out for the banana peel.
That banana peel, man, gets them every time.
Look, how many cartoons do we have to watch till it gets into people's head? Don't step on the banana peel. I was on this morning on the Ask a Christian stream, and there was a 23-year-old woman, and it was so sad talking with her. And I take her at her word that she was 23. She literally had the mentality and reasoning capacity of a 14-year-old girl.
Oh, you know how we were talking about Andrew, like trotting in people to debate the atheist?
Yeah.
So I guess he's having a hard time getting Christians in his room, and he brought our friend Cool Guy Jeff over to Matt Yester's Clubhouse room. So literally I went on to Clubhouse right after we had that conversation, and he was doing this. He was trying to have Cool Guy Jeff defeat Matt Yester at tag, and of course Cool Guy Jeff just did his thing where he got.
Yeah, he does his shtick.
what if I could have this view and this view? And then, oh, what about this view? It never defends any view while he's doing this.
You know, how can you be a happy and fulfilled person when you just engage in nonstop bullshitting?
One time he's telling us like his wife and his child are at church, and he's like sitting here trying to tell us God doesn't exist at the same time. It's like, that's got to be some cognitive dissonance. That's so weird.
I guarantee you that scumbag does not treat his wife the way he treats Christians.
Yeah.
Actually, I am a happy and fulfilled person. It's just I do express indignation and righteous anger for people who act like uncivilized monkeys. Okay? So don't confuse my personal happiness with the fact that I am ready and willing to express anger and indignation for people behaving like uncivilized troglodytes.
I think like having a relationship with God is like the most fulfilling thing you can do in life. Like, what's better than that?
You see, if you love somebody, you're willing to risk their wanting to be cordial or friendly with them by telling them the truth.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Okay? All right? That we're willing to tell people, look, you're behaving in a completely uncivilized manner. Look, you're being incredibly deceptive and evasive. See, people on here, especially the uncivilized things that parents have raised, think that anything that comes out of somebody's mouth has equal merit with other stuff. Well, it's my personal belief. I feel that such and such and such and I really feel that, and I believe that saying crap like that has equal merit with anything else.
Yeah, they always talk about their opinions, like, well, I think this, and in my opinion, I don't, I have a problem with that.
I always like it when a 23-year-old says, well, it's my personally held belief. Really? I didn't know that you could have an impersonal held belief. Yeah, so you know what the funny thing is? We get this reaction from the low information when we talk with some educated people, like I've had to do, who have PhDs and they're atheists, that they themselves resort to evil debate tactics when they can't actually answer reasonable questions.
I had a guy like bring me into the weeds today about like whether the tag is like deductive and like, I said it's partly inductive, partly deductive, because I remember Bonson saying that.
Yes.
And then he wanted me to like press me further on that, and I could kind of answer that, where I was saying, well, it's like inductive in the sense we're appealing to like observe something in the observable world, like the fact that we have knowledge or something. But then I guess now I know how to answer, but I didn't really know how to say, like, I couldn't really think of like how I would say true, then the conclusion necessarily follows, like a transcendental necessity. So, but I just didn't know, like, at the time, like, I kind of got caught off guard, and I'm kind of like, well, why does this like matter? Can we just deal with the argument? Like, they want to like talk about this like petty crap instead of just actually like address the issue. It's so stupid.
You see, when we invoke the propositional content of God's revelation from creation and the biblical content, and we characterize it as being self-authenticating, okay? When they object to that, all they're simply doing is either explicitly or implicitly making a counter propositional claim. So then implicitly they're conveying that the propositional counterclaim to the position of God's revelation is self-authenticating. They're going to have to justify that their implicit counterclaim is self-authenticating. Because if it's not, they don't have a defeater for our referencing the propositional content as self-authenticating. Not accepting it is not an actual defense that it's not self-authenticating. It is an implicit counterclaim, but an implicit counterclaim that is not substantive, that is vacuous. So in order to rebut the proposition that God's revelation in creation and the propositional content of the Bible is self-authenticating, they're going to have to present a self-authenticating, authoritative rebuttal. But you see, they're in a dilemma now, because now if they're arguing against self-authentication, how are they going to argue for their proposition that they will use as the defeater for our proposition if it's not self-authenticating or deriving depending upon a proposition that's self-authenticating? Oops.
What would you like to say, Joe?
Yeah, do me a favor. If
Okay.
this Matthew guy keeps on inviting, block his account.
Who, me?
No, not you. Somebody who keeps on sending an invite.
So yeah, I just came up. I've been talking with a lot of atheists recently, and I hit the roadblock of proving that the universe cannot be infinite. So like an infinite regress is not possible. And I went talking to like a lot of people.
Because their mental state and their model of reality is not one that's the product of reason.
Yeah, but how could you prove that the universe can't have an infinite regress?
By instantiating its negation, because we have God's eyewitness testimony that it's not.
Well, first of all, what they're invoking that the universe is an infinite regress or in some way eternal.
Yep.
You ask himself, did the universe itself engage in a revelatory action to tell you that?
Darth, you misunderstand his question. He's asking how you would prove that it's not eternal. And the way you would prove it's not eternal is by proving what is eternal that's not the universe.
Well, I was piggybacking on what you said. I was agreeing with what you said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I should have clarified saying what you said was the answer. Okay, so we can prove that something is false by instantiating a proposition which negates the other proposition in question. So we invoke the revelation of the only thing that is eternal, God. Now, of course, they're not going to accept that.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that if we articulate it correctly, that we haven't proven it. It just simply means is they do not accept the proof that is given. The non-acceptance of our rebuttal, okay, by giving a positive representation of the eternal one, God, the self-revealing God, revealing himself in creation and ultimately through Jesus Christ, and the propositional content in the Bible, and being that the whole Christian worldview itself is self-authenticating given the attribute set of God, they're going to reject that because they are rebellious, unrepentant sinners, because they want to believe that they're autonomous operators and not creaturely under the eternal God. So what they're going to do in order to escape their guilty conscience that they're accountable to their creator is they're going to appeal to a figment of their imagination in terms of some type of naturalistic or materialistic world, that there would be no way for them to rationally account for this. So when they adopt that the world is eternal rather than God, okay, they are rejecting that God is the eternal. Okay, so in Romans 1 it says, ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, God's eternal power, his divine nature, have been clearly seen through what has been made. They are adopting that the world is eternal as a stopgap maneuver so as to not acknowledge that the world entails and is emblematic of eternal God. But here's the delicious part. When they reject that God is the eternal, okay, then and I want you to memorize this, the very criterion or principle that they're using to dismiss God as the eternal, they are instantly violating when they're adopting that something else is eternal.
Well, they're
so it's either God is the self-revealing eternal one, or something else is eternal.
It's just that
now,
like they're.
So do you understand if they say, "Well, you haven't proven that God is eternal"? Well, how was it proven to them that the universe is eternal?
I don't know if you're answering my question. My question, because like they're agnostics. They're like, maybe the universe is infinite, maybe it's finite. They grant me that if it's finite,
No.
I just want. Can you just like explain why it's not?
They don't have the luxury to throw out multiple different explanations.
It's just maybe. There's no proof for either. If it's.
You know what I'm saying to you is this: these are worldview body doubles. Okay, remember that phrase, worldview body doubles. When they do not accept that eternal God has revealed himself in and through his creation, the only way that they're going to legitimately make an attempt to oppose that, right, is to tell us what it is, the proposition that defeats God, rather than mere potential actuals. Because throwing out multiple views is waving the white flag of surrender that they don't have a definitive propositional defeater for God being the eternal.
Think of it like this. If I said, there's a silver-colored car parked in my driveway, someone can't falsify that assertion by saying, well, maybe it's a truck, maybe it's a black car. Well, them throwing out maybe this, maybe that isn't a defeater that there's a silver car in my driveway.
Yeah, but that's obvious. I think like the existence of God is not like, of course you see it in nature, like you can like my personal experience says God exists, but it's not something that's obvious. You can't like prove it. I want to be able
what they're attempting to do. What they're attempting to do is nullify your invocation.
I don't care what they want to do. I just want to have an argument. Can you like?
I'm trying to educate you, my friend.
Well, hold on a second. I think, Darth, the issue might be is, did you just say that the existence of God is not obvious? Is that what you said?
I think
it can't be proven.
There's a reason why you have debates between atheists and Christians all the time.
Well, first of all, it
I just
can't
want to know
be.
if the universe
Listen
is
to me
infinite.
carefully. Listen to me carefully. It can't be multiple things, because God as the ground of being either necessarily is, or something else necessarily is. You can't sit there and propose a multiple of views to logically bring a defeater to God as the only source. So when they invoke two or more things rather than one and saying, no, I don't accept God because XYZ is the ultimate ground of being. If they start invoking more than one alternative to be a defeater for God, they're committing a fallacy. Because These alternatives are not contingencies. So, for example, if I said to you, I heard a noise in my backyard and it's a coyote, and somebody comes up and saying, no, I don't accept that. That could be your neighbor's dog. It could also be the cat from across the street. Okay? Now, they're responding to not accepting your proposition because your proposition in question is a contingency, and saying, well, because it's a contingency, it could be that contingency or this contingency or this contingency. But God, as the ground of being, is not a contingency. So the only way to not accept that is to provide what does actually exist, that is the ground of all being, that's not God. To offer more than one alternative is to commit a fallacy. It's just an ignorant attempt to nullify your position by offering multiple alternatives and saying, well, your position is not exclusive and indispensable because it could be this, it could be that. But the answer is, you're just talking conceptually. If you're not going to accept that God is the actual eternal ground of all being, you're going to need to provide me with a defeater. And offering multiple options is waving the white flag of defeat, because those are not defeaters. Because if they offer two or more views, they both can't be true. Either one of them is or is the putative or alleged defeater, or none of them are. Offering two or three more alternative grounds of being is fallacious. He didn't sound very receptive. Welcome, Dogma Debate. Do you accept God as your creator?
No, I do not.
Can you tell me why God does not exist?
No. I have a question for you.
Was that a no?
No, I don't. Just I don't. Yeah.
So you
Can you
don't
think of
have
any?
it. So you don't. So your God denialism is not rational.
No, I just want to know. Can you name another thing that
You're
exists?
dodging. You're dodging
I'm not
my
dodging
question.
anything,
If
Darth.
you want to ask
I
me,
came
look,
to ask.
did your mother and father fail to
Did your
civilize
mother
you?
and father, were they cousins, Darth? I just have a simple
Yeah, you
question.
just proved my point.
Do
Why
you
do you
have?
think I'm talking to you this way? Because you're being uncivilized.
Because I had call. I
Okay.
want to ask you
Now,
a simple question.
I'm sorry. I
Stop
didn't
yelling.
realize I'm under the delusion that I'm in your stream.
You're
Am I deluded? Am I in your stream?
trying to have a conversation.
Yeah,
Sir.
obviously, mom and dad
Yeah,
failed to civilize you.
clearly. So, can I
Okay,
ask you
good.
another question?
So I'm going to plead with you to put away your uncivilized way and just pretend for a moment that you're going to be a mature adult. Can you do
Yep.
that? Good. Now, I asked you a question. If you want to pepper me with questions, I'm game for that.
Great.
But you see, you don't jump into the room, you don't walk into a restaurant and then go back in the kitchen and start telling everybody what to do. Okay?
Strange
Now,
analogy.
I asked you a question. Is your God denialism rational?
Yes.
Good. Can you explain that?
So we will have your conversation instead of just answering the one simple question.
Did I
wanted
not
to
tell
ask
you just a minute ago?
Yes,
I'll
that
be
there's.
more than did mom and dad fail to teach you to be civilized? Now, did I not just tell you I'll take whatever questions you want to dish my way? Did you not hear me say that?
I heard you say it, and then you went right back
Good.
into your
Yeah,
talking.
okay, so were you having amnesia? Did you forget that I said that?
Yep, totally forgot.
Okay, now, would you please explain to me briefly why your atheism is rational? I'm waiting.
The God claims have not met their burden of proof.
Okay, that is you're now shape-shifting.
No, I'm not.
Trying to absolve yourself. What you're doing, this is a classic
Says you.
maneuver. Let me
Have you
finish.
ever convinced anyone?
This is a classic maneuver of trying to absolve yourself of your responsibility. Okay? I'll try one more time.
Do you not like my answer?
Telling me that people failed to provide you with
Yes, exactly.
rationale for God.
Can you think
Listen
of one
carefully.
other thing that
Sir,
exists?
did mom and dad fail to civilize you?
Yes, let's hear more about your streams.
Did mom and dad fail to civilize you?
Let's hear more about your streams.
Okay. Now, telling me that people's reasoning have failed to persuade you of God logically necessitate that God does not exist. Do you accept what I just said, or do you deny that?
I accept it.
Okay, now, so your rationale, your first salvo, is a fallacy. That because people fail to convince you, therefore God does not exist. So that's a fallacy.
Say that.
So
you don't accept
you
the
most
definition
certainly
of atheism.
did. You most certainly did.
No, because you don't know what atheism is.
Okay. Hey, listen. The state that I am in, I'm only allowed to talk with uncivilized teenagers trapped in adult bodies after about their 5th episode. So bye. Isn't it amazing? I quote him accurately, and then he denies that I quoted him accurately.
Well, his statement there, Darth, when he says that people who believe in God have not met in their burden of proof, you could that would also entail that he's asserting that the world is not proof of God, because if the world was, then
I know
we would have met our burden.
When we're dealing with uncivilized teenagers trapped in adult bodies, they don't even understand the ramifications or implications of what they say, because they're only accustomed to thinking in terms of atheist slogans that are not philosophically substantive or robust. So the point is, his claim was, God does not exist because the God believers failed to convince me. I mean, how dumb is that?
Hello.
Welcome, Bo. Do you accept God as your creator?
I used to, not anymore.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
I don't accept the idea that there is no God.
Okay, to not accept the idea that there's God entails either the direct or indirect denial of God. Are we clear?
Wait, say that again?
To not accept the existence of God is to either directly or indirectly deny the existence of God. What you're doing is classically what most skeptics do. You start off identifying with atheism, but then when you are asked to give an account of why God does not exist, you shapeshift into, golly shucks, I have a mental state where I'm unconvinced.
Well, no. So my position is very simple. It's that I don't believe God exists, but I also don't believe God doesn't exist. I'm on the fence.
That's a fallacy. Okay.
Well, no, it's
Okay, sir. Are you trying? Listen, Thomas Henry Huxley, who invented the term agnosticism in the middle to late 19th century, was a materialist atheist, and he was a liar. He did not want to come out in Victorian British society and admit that he was a God denier. So he concocted verbiage. He concocted verbiage in order to obscure what his real position was, and he hid behind the incredulity card, okay? And that's precisely what you're doing here. You're saying is, oh, I don't believe in God, but I'm not saying that God doesn't exist. Unfortunately, I've got news for you. Because of the category that God is in, the ground of being, if you refuse to accept that, if you refuse to accept the necessity of God, that entails the denial of God, whether you admit it or not. Now, do you want to dispute what I just said?
Well, yeah, I would say that first off, we're talking about a belief claim, right? Not
I
knowledge.
want to hear a rebuttal.
Right. I'm getting to that. I'm rebutting it right now.
No, I don't want you to get to it. I want you to give me a rebuttal now.
Sure. I'm rebutting it right now. If you would just let me finish. So, where we're talking about a belief claim, right? Not knowledge. So, because we're talking about belief, it's whether you believe or not believe. So to say that I don't believe in a God is not
Do you
the
know?
same as saying
Do you know how many times I've heard this before? I have literally heard what you're saying, literally hundreds of times before.
Then tell me
Okay,
what
all you're simply doing, listen to me,
Then tell me what
your rebuttal, listen to me carefully. You didn't actually give me a rebuttal.
Because you didn't let me finish.
Sir, I'm talking right now.
I was too until you interrupted.
Sir, listen to me. I'm stopping you because it's the same thing I've heard a gazillion times before. What you stated. Okay. Do you want me to kick you out of here because mom and dad failed to civilize you?
All right, look, I'm just saying, if you know what
I'm just saying, do you want me to kick you out of here because you're not being civilized?
I hardly think I'm not being civilized.
You aren't being civilized. Now, listen carefully.
trying to
What
have
you did, okay, bye. Goodbye, uncivilized one. So what he did was he did not give a rebuttal. What he did was simply restate the incredulity claim. He did not give a rebuttal to my position that the refusal to accept God constitutes either a direct or an indirect denial of God. There was no rebuttal. All there was just a restatement of, I'm without belief in God, but I'm not denying God. He's just restating his opening claim. Okay? It wasn't a rebuttal to what I said.
Well, they're desperate clingers to their neutrality. I doubt he even comprehended how not
This is
accepting
so
God entails the denial of God.
This is so instructive for Christians out there of the chronic shape-shifting from God denying to the card, where I just don't believe. I'm just without a belief. I'm unconvinced. But to choose not to accept the necessity of God, thinking that you don't believe in God, but you're not asserting that God does not exist, is just simply a restatement of incredulity and not a rebuttal to my critique that the non-acceptance of it constitutes an indirect denial. He didn't give a rebuttal.
Dude, you're the one who's in denial, dude, and you're the one who literally shouts over anyone who uses any kind of logic against your nonsense.
Okay, I raise my voice and I will interject when people are literally going into verbal disruption and bickering mode. People are not actually dispensing logic at all. They're making numerous fallacies that I point out. Now,
religion only exists in the absence of logic.
I'm going to ask you, can you give me a specific of where I am not accepting some valid logic of theirs?
Of whose?
Anyone to whom you're referring to. You said I'm over talking and refusing to accept the logic that they're invoking. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Then give me specifics.
What do you mean specifics? I mean, I can give you plenty of specifics if you actually want to let me speak.
Are you recovering from the flu?
Are you? Did you
No,
get
I'm
COVID?
not. Absolutely no, I'm not recovering from the flu.
No,
But
me
since
neither.
you're not recovering from the flu, you should be able to give me some specification of how I'm just over talking them when they're dispensing nuggets of logic.
Yeah, what particular logic are you referring to?
Yeah, I want
How?
specificity.
All
Go.
right. Logically speaking, how is God any more real than, say, Santa Claus?
Asking me a question is not answering what I just presented to you. You impugn me, you accuse me of simply interrupting them as a tactic to ignore their nuggets of gold logic. Give me one example of a nugget of gold logic that they have given me.
The Earth is round. Dinosaurs
I've never.
existed. The Earth
You
revolves
must be
around the
recovering.
sun.
You know something? You must be recovering the flu
All things that
because
only
nobody
religion
has been. Listen to me.
refutes.
Why are you interrupting me and being disrupted to the nuggets of logic that I'm giving you right now? You're doing the very thing you
Is it my turn
claim
to
I
answer?
did. Now listen carefully. Nobody has been discussing at all the roundness or the sphericalness of the earth. What statement of logic that would be used to support their atheism have they invoked to me?
Give us
The
the actual
existence of
logic
other
that they use.
religions.
What is the logic of
The
atheism?
existence of other religions is a
How
logical argument
how is
against your religion.
how is the
How
presence
is
of
that not
other?
illogical?
Okay, all right. How old are you?
How does the presence of your religion make their
Sir,
religions
listen to
any
me
less real?
carefully. I want to know how old you are because if
No,
you're a
you listen to me
teenager,
carefully, you fucking moron.
all right, okay. Once again, folks, we see the failure of parents to civilize their children who grow up and suffer from teenagers trapped in adult body syndrome.
So the Christian worldview is false because there's other religions. So let's apply that thinking to something else. There's no such thing as real money because counterfeit money exists,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, do not bring Rodney up. Rodney is persona non grata.
So he actually gives the fallacy while lecturing us about logic. He actually thinks fallacious reasoning is rational.
How many times did I repeat myself asking for him to give me a specification of the logic they're invoking? I was over
Well, that,
talking them. What logic? And he starts talking about the spherical nature of the earth. When I don't discuss with people at all about the roundness or spherosity of the earth at all.
well, of course, that's because we all knew he was just BSing. So when asked for specifics, he'd never be able to provide them.
Welcome, Kang. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do. I am a theist. I believe in God. I don't necessarily believe in the Christian God, but I do believe in God.
What God do you believe in?
I believe God's got to be the greatest being. I don't have a particular. I'm a deist.
How is you're what?
Deist.
Is a deist somebody who believes there's a creator God who does not engage in revelation or intercede providentially?
Correct.
Okay, then there's no God to speak of.
So God requires revelation.
There's no God because your God doesn't reveal himself. So there's no God to speak of. What God?
I believe he reveals himself, but not in the sense
Well,
like.
then you're contradicting yourself because then you said you're a deist. A deist God, by definition, does not engage in revelation.
I believe he reveals himself in the sense that
then you're not a deist.
in nature. Sure, I'm a theist.
Okay.
Fine.
So he revealed himself in nature. Does your God have the properties and attributes to effectively carry that out?
Does he have the properties to effectively reveal himself in nature? Yeah. Yeah.
Does the God that you don't believe in after you reject Jesus Christ and the triune God of the Bible, does your God have the sufficient attributes to effectively carry that out?
He's grounded in the laws of logic. Can your God do logical absurdities?
What does it mean for God to be grounded in laws of logic? What does that mean?
That means he has to abide by those logical rules.
Oh, okay. So God
can't create a married bachelor.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm just trying to think of how to formulate this. So your God is subject to some realm?
Not a realm, but he can't do logical absurdities. Yours can't either.
Why can't your God do logical absurdities?
Because that's part of his essential nature.
How do you know what his essential nature is?
Because it logically deduces that it has to be.
What the hell does that
Give
mean?
us the deduction. How did you deduce
Yeah,
that?
that was not an informative answer. That was a stopgap measure. You're just making this up as you go along, aren't you?
No.
Oh, you're not?
Look, God can't do logical absurdities, correct?
First you tell me you're a deist. Then you switch that you're a theist and you're saying, "Oh, well my God has this attributes, that attributes." Did he communicate that to you?
No, he's only reveals himself in the immutable, unchanging
Did your
laws
God
of logic.
reveal to you that he is omniscient and omnipotent?
Yeah.
How?
He created the universe.
How does it follow from creating something that he's omnipotent and omniscient? What if it's the case that he's just very powerful, but he's not omnipotent?
You mean as
being very powerful, being unimaginably powerful does not equate necessarily to omnipotence. Nor does that equate to omniscience. So I'm asking you, when and how did your God reveal this to you? Do you see what you're resorting to? Because you don't want to accept Jesus Christ as the self-revealing, self-authenticating second person of the Trinity who died and rose on the cross, that you will resort to a God of a figment of your imagination, because that God is not going to impel you to repent. Whereas Jesus Christ does command you to repent, bow before him, admit that you have spiritual rabies, you're under his wrath, and if you turn to him as Savior, he will save you from your sins. You refuse to do that, and you're in such a state of rebellion against Jesus Christ that you will even resort to a God of a complete figment of your imagination because you don't want to repent.
I don't believe repentance is
right.
Is,
And how is that belief true and not a figment of your imagination?
All right. So is God fair?
I'm going to ask you a question. How is what you just asserted not a figment of your imagination?
Because I believe God is fair and
God it's is not just. It's okay. I believe it. I believe it's true because I believe it. That's what you just said. It's true because I believe it.
Again,
does believing something make something true?
I'm going to reiterate that God is fair and just and doesn't.
How do you know that?
He would not.
How do
Because
you
it's
know that?
because that's why I'm saying it's God is grounded in logic, and if God is grounded in
How
logic,
do you know? How do you know logic doesn't dictate fairness?
logic
Logic
doesn't
just
dictate
dictates that
fairness.
A is
No,
A.
because
Dude,
you
dude,
logically
how
wouldn't.
let me ask you a question.
Uh huh.
How stupid do you think I am? Do you think that you're going to be able to out verbally bamboozle me with this stuff you're making up on the spot? Are you telling me that you're not making this stuff up on the spot?
No.
Then where did your God reveal all of these specificities?
What specificity are
All
you
right,
asking
we're
about
done.
specifically?
You've been lying enough, so we're going to be done. Once somebody makes it clear to me they're a pathological liar and that they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes, like they think I'm stupid, it's time for you to go.
Well, he said that he knows what he knows about his God from natural revelation, and he says that his God is just. But where did he find justice out there in the natural world?
Yeah,
How,
exactly.
how has that come to?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, how old are you?
Hi, I'm 22.
Okay. Do you accept God as your creator?
I'm sorry?
I said, do you accept God as your creator?
No, I'm actually not Christian. I never have been Christian.
I didn't ask you if you were a Christian. I said, do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Yeah, no, actually I can't tell you why there's no God.
So
I
why do you deny God then?
I don't necessarily deny him.
Oh, okay. Do you accept the necessity of God for everything?
No.
Well, guess what? Welcome to the club. You just denied God. To not accept the necessity of God, especially the self-revealing God in creation and history through Jesus Christ, to not accept the necessity of God for everything is to, in effect, deny God indirectly. An indirect denial of God is every much a denial as a direct denial of God. So claiming you're
Okay.
unconvinced is just a verbal camouflage trying to obscure.
All in.
Well, you cannot be neutral toward God. You will either speak of the world, propositions, either with reference to the necessity of God, or let me finish.
Okay.
Either you will speak propositions with reference to the necessity of God, explicitly or implicitly, or without. The man who invented the idea that one could be neutral toward God has turned out to be, in history, a liar. His name was Thomas Henry Huxley. He invented the concept and the term agnostic, and he was a liar because he was hiding from the Victorian public in England that he was, in fact, a materialist atheist. But he needed a cover story so as not to be rejected as an influencer in British society. So he invented the term agnostic. Oh, I don't believe in God, but I'm not saying God does not exist. It was all a scam. And to this very day, we have people naively saying, oh, I don't believe in God, but I'm not saying God does not exist. To not positively accept the necessity of God is a de facto denial of God, whether or not the individual admits it. And you know what's funny? Agnostics refuse to accept the necessity of God while falling back on, oh, I'm just unconvinced. But there are atheists who identify as atheists, but when they're asked to defend that position, They rebrand atheism as, oh, I'm just unconvinced.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What is the importance of God? Because, like I said, I'm not Christian. I've never been raised Christian. I've never learned about Christianity. I was raised Mormon, which I've been told actually isn't Christianity. So, I don't know, 18 years of my life was non-Christian, and now I'm out of the Mormon church. So what is the importance
That's
of
good.
God
Well,
through a
good.
Christian lens?
I'm genuinely happy for you that you're out of Mormonism. So God is the creator, the eternal one, the ground of all being, who has revealed himself clearly in all of creation, in that all of creation exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality, and it could only do so if and only if God purposed that.
Can you give me a few examples?
I will in a second, okay?
Okay.
The only alternative, conceptually speaking, is to not accept that the world reveals God by his purpose. But then you would be in a completely irrational state when properly understood, because without God as creator, what people fail to understand, God as creator constitutes a single, concrete, causal first principle who secures all that is and cannot be according to his plan. When somebody rejects that God is the single causal first principle, I just don't mean in the past, but in the present. Right now, God is the single causal first principle.
What does that mean? I'm not familiar with that term.
So God is a single entity who is absolute, ultimate, and is the origin and basis of what is and cannot be. So God in his unity is the ultimate foundation for all that the world is, from top to bottom. So all of the unity and diversity in the world at all different levels and classes, this is something that God institutes, and he is sustaining right now by the power of his will. So philosophically, God represents the single causal first principle, both in the past and the present. So because the mind of God creates himself in creation, is what imposes and secures that there are identity states or states of unity along with diversity. When that is rejected, one will be operating in principle, whether they realize it or not, that something else is actualizing the unity and diversity that is in the world, without which we couldn't speak intelligibly. So when I say the dog is the dog and the dog is not the cat, I'm invoking unity and diversity. Okay? You cannot speak intelligibly about anything without the fundamental parameters of unity and diversity. So the self-revealing God, the God of the Bible, reveals himself in and through creation in a clear way, and it's not rationally deniable. Now, there are people who say, let me just finish. There are people who think, oh, yes, it is rationally deniable. Well, then they're going to have to explain what is the something else that actualizes the unity and diversity in the world, without which they cannot claim to speak intelligibly that unity and diversity is real or actualized. So, for example, would you agree that oxygen and water are exclusive and indispensable for keeping you alive?
I suppose.
Yeah. The mind and plan of God creating and sustaining this world is exclusive and indispensable for any.
In a different way.
Yeah. If we will either accept that God is the ground of all being, or that something else is. and they don't get a get out of jail free card. When
What does that
people
mean
try
exactly?
to, do you ever play Monopoly?
Only a few times.
Okay, so in Monopoly, there are these things that you can land on, like community chest or whatever. They're cards. And when you
Okay.
land on it, you get a card. Sometimes you get a fine, sometimes you get money.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll get a card that'll say get out of jail free. So if you get sent to jail
Sorry,
in
I wasn't
Monopoly,
talking about the get out free card. I was talking
okay.
about the concept that you were saying people are trying to use get out of free cards.
Okay. So what they're trying to do is that they are operating that they can have intelligibility without God. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't need God. God's not necessary.
Can I try to explain it a little?
Yeah. Yes.
I think when you're saying like get out of jail free, you're saying like they don't have to defend their position. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah.
So
they're invoking something to absolve themselves of having to account for their counter position.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we have here is a dichotomy. Either you're dead or you're alive. Either it's A or not A. Either we accept the self-revealing God, who is the ultimate precondition and necessity for everything, or one will be operating that something else is.
Okay.
But
See, that's where I think I disagree with you.
Okay.
Is I don't think it's all or nothing. I think it can be a spectrum.
No, that's incorrect.
Why?
So it's either God is the singular necessary precondition for everything, or not. Now, in the not category, you might want to hypothesize a number of possibilities, but that would be problematic. It's because you couldn't have two or more ultimate explanations.
Okay.
You can only have
what happens if
one.
I deny God?
I didn't hear what you said. Please repeat.
I said, what happens if I deny God?
Then, several things.
Okay.
One, you will continue to remain under God's condemnation because you're a sinner before a holy and righteous God, and you will have just the remaining heartbeats that you have before Judgment Day, and then you will be separated from God because of your refusal to acknowledge Him and turn to Him as Savior. Number two, the rejection of God will place you in an indefensible, ultimately incoherent model of reality, although you will pretend to yourself that it's coherent when it's actually not. So in the God world, the mind and plan of God is what institutes and secures whatever unity and diversity there is at a fundamental level. If you reject
what is the mind and
God's
what was
mind
it?
and plan, He creates the world, and He has a plan, and He created the world so where there's lions, tigers, and bears, and dogs, and trees, and rocks, and water. These are all states of unity and diversity. These are all identity states. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that is rejected, then you will be operating in principle that something else actualizes the unity and diversity of the world. So what's the something else?
Oh,
and saying, and saying reality or science or physics is not an answer.
Okay, so I just want to repeat what I got out of what you were saying. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so what I receive from that and am repeating back to you is if I don't believe that God is the one, the only, the unity, the creator, what do I believe instead? Is that the question?
You will be operating in principle that something else actualizes the unity and diversity of the world without which you couldn't speak intelligibly.
Okay, so what makes like what makes it your opinion more credible than, say, the Mormon opinion? Because the Mormons also say that they're the one true church and that God will come again, and like this is all like Christians had it somewhat right, Hindus have it somewhat right, but the Mormons, they have it all
We
right.
can
And I've come to not believe that. And
well we
so
can
like what's
we can show the absolute incoherency of Mormonism.
Can you
Okay?
define incoherency for me?
Yeah, it means things that either are ultimately upon examination not intelligible or they're contradictory.
Mhm.
Like
Okay,
inconsistent.
so how is
So
like Christianity?
Joseph Smith explicitly taught that God the Father was originally a man. Are you aware of that?
I mean, not completely, but because I am
Yeah,
a
that
woman, so
no,
um,
I'm saying he was a man, a human.
okay,
Okay.
that's actually not what they teach. But continue.
Okay, you are 100% wrong. Okay, the Church of Latter-day Saints
The Church of Jesus
actually,
Christ of Latter-day Saints.
that's right. They actually publish a book that includes Joseph Smith's sermons, and in one of the sermons,
Are
Joseph
you
Smith.
referring to the Doctrine and Covenants?
I don't remember what the title of it is. If I open up my computer, I could give you the exact title. I've actually
No
looked it
worries.
up. I actually talked with an educated Mormon a number of months ago. He denied this, and then when I went back and I gave him chapter and verse, the date, the copyright that it was published by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then he had to eat crow and admitting that he was fibbing.
Hey,
Okay.
no worries. I don't have any of like the
Okay, so
material. I don't have
Joseph,
my laptop nearby me,
there
so
are
we don't
there
have
are
to
certain
look it up. But I
there,
was just curious
there
if
are
you knew that it
certain
was.
doctrines there are certain doctrines that Mormonism teaches
Oh,
that
I
are
agree.
presented under. Can I finish? That are not. They are taught flying under the radar, and this is one of them because it's an embarrassing thing. Okay, now it teaches that God was once a man, and then
Okay.
this man eventually became God. Now, this is incoherent because in order to be God, you have to be ultimate and not contingent. To be a man is to be a contingent being. You cannot go from contingency to an ultimacy. Because if you're a contingent being at any point, okay, like Joseph Smith indicated, ultimate. And either there is nothing in that scenario that is ultimate, or there's something ultimate that is not the man who eventually became God.
Okay.
I googled it, and it's saying, according to the teachings of Joseph Smith, God the Father was once a man who attained godhood through progression, meaning he was once mortal like humans and eventually became exalted to a divine state.
Yeah, and the Mormon Church is this.
Okay, I
In his
thought you were
sermon.
saying something else. What I thought you were saying was Jesus Christ specifically.
No,
Is
I'm not talking about the incarnation. What I'm saying to you is also Mormonism teaches polytheism. The Bible teaches that polytheism is false.
Mm-hmm.
There are no other gods.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah 43, 44, 45, and 46. It says repeatedly in these chapters, there are in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have the major prophets and then the minor prophets, and
What
they're
made
just
him
called
a prophet?
minor. They're just called minor because the books in question are shorter but no less significant. Okay, the major prophets, the books are much longer in content. So the point is, I could go down a laundry list for you. Okay, look, do you know that according to Joseph Smith, to show you what a scammer he was, he claimed that he translated the Book of Mormon from Egyptian hieroglyphics. Okay, and he gave information about it. It would literally mean that each hieroglyphic had to be hundreds, if not thousands, of lines of English text in order for what him to make it true. Number two, he would have certainly been jacked because if the Book of Mormon, the golden plates, were made of gold, if we take a minimum thickness of the pages or the plates,
Yeah, I
the
actually
Book
don't
of
believe
Mormon
any of the
would have
truth
weighed
claims
over
by Mormonism.
900 pounds.
hmm Yeah, I don't believe
Okay.
any of the truth claims of
Okay,
Mormonism.
so Mormonism is self-contradictory. It contradicts the Bible. The Bible contradicts not only the Book of Mormon but Mormon doctrine.
Mhm.
Okay? Now,
Yeah,
if
no,
you
I'm
don't
ex-Mormon.
accept
I don't believe the
if you
truth claims
don't
of the church.
accept if you don't accept that God is, then in principle you're operating that something else actualizes all of the unified states in the world. What is the something else that you're operating from, without which identifying it is, you cannot claim that unity is real in your system?
So is that a question for me to answer?
What is the something else?
Life. For me, it's life.
That's that's that
I
that's
like
that's
to
that's an appeal to
think
abstraction.
that. Are you
Let me
gonna let
just
me
give you a
talk?
yeah, I just want to give you a compliment, okay? That we have been dealing with uncivilized scoundrels all night long. And in spite of your disagreement with me, it's clear to me that you have been really trying to conduct yourself maturely and in a civilized way, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, may I have my turn?
That's why I don't mind that you're disagreeing, because you're really trying, you're making every effort to maturely disagree, and that's fine. So go ahead.
Okay, so can you repeat what the question was?
What is the something else that you will be operating from instantaneously when you reject that God reveals himself through creation and in addition through Jesus Christ codified in the Bible? What is the something else that actualizes the unity and diversity in the world, without which you won't be able to speak intelligibly?
So when I was a Mormon, I did scripture study. I read the Bible, I think once or in fragments, right? Um, this is the King James version specifically. Um, and I don't know, I didn't get anything out of it that through my deconstruction has stuck with me. I have come to feel and believe for myself that sin doesn't exist.
I'm not hearing an answer to my question.
No, I'm giving you details. So may I
No, I
finish?
want you to, what is the something else that
I'm explaining
grounds,
what the something else is.
what is the something else that institutes unity in the world?
What is that wasn't the question earlier.
That's the question. What, since you don't accept that God is the self-revealing one who actualizes the unity in the world according to his plan, what is the something else that actualizes unity in the world?
Um, I think just being alive, everyone has a chance to
You're not telling me
interact with
what is the something else?
being alive.
That's not telling me an entity. What entity?
There is no entity.
Okay, so there's nothing that actualizes unity in the world?
I don't believe so. I believe that we are the logical
Okay.
conclusion of
So
everything that's
so
ever
so
happened.
so so the unity in the world doesn't actually exist?
I would say that it's more of a like we as pattern seeking creatures like to make
Yeah,
connections even if there are not.
that's atheist YouTube rhetoric.
No, that's my
No,
experience.
trust me, I've listened to enough atheist debaters and apologists. You are directly borrowing that when you say
I
pattern seeking creatures.
haven't watched any of
I'm not
you
okay.
like
Listen to me. There are no are patterns real?
yes.
Well, then that would mean that states of unity and diversity are real, right?
Sure, but that doesn't make God
What
real.
actualizes the realness of unified and diverse states?
Your subjective experiences.
No. Then there's nothing actual. Then what you're does your subjective experience cause focusing? To sit there and say your subjective experience is a stopgap answer that has no bearing on the question.
Okay, so how can I make my
Listen
point
to me
more
carefully. Listen to me carefully.
Okay.
Your subjective experience is you are receiving. You're not causing the unity states in the world. Is your sensory apparatus in composite? Is it causing
Can you define
the
that, please?
moon? Is it causing the moon to exist? Is it causing the continent of Africa to be?
I'm sorry, can you define what was it? The
Unity and diversity. One of the
no, the other
fundamental
thing that you said is my what making the moon
is your
exist?
sensory apparatus, your
Can you define
sensory
that?
experience, is your sensory apparatus. I'm quoting you.
I never said sensory apparatus.
You said your sensory experience.
No, I said my subjective experience.
Oh, so how would you have a subjective experience without sensory apparatus? Would it simply be a mental phenomenon without receiving anything from sense datum?
So are you talking about like my brain?
Is your mental experiences devoid of receiving sense datum?
Can you rephrase that?
Yeah. Are your mental experiences only confined but are not influenced or in any way dictated by external matters?
So am I able to receive sensory input
Yeah,
and then
look,
have
this is just ridiculous. Okay, your subjective experiences, okay, are not causally imposing states of unity. Because
not claiming that they are.
if it's then a subjective experience, then the external states of unity are not real. It's just subjective. It's just a mental state in your head. Is the moon real?
I believe so.
Okay. Do your mental experiences causally impose and sustain the moon in existence?
No.
Okay, so your answer is a fail. So what is the something else that actualizes the objective unity and diversity in the world?
I'm sorry, are you saying because I can't interact with
we're done. We're done here. We're gonna stop with all this dodging. Okay. Her cordiality was good, but her persistent evasiveness. Okay. She would like me to believe that when she says we're pattern seeking creatures. You mean you didn't pick that up from atheist YouTube videos? Really? How stupid do you think I am? User, do you accept God as your creator?
No, I do not.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Because of the problem of evil.
How would you know what is compatible and incompatible with God?
What do you mean?
Well, is evil incompatible with the existence of God?
Well, as Catholics define God, yeah.
Okay, sir, is evil incompatible with a creator?
With your definition of God,
Sir,
yes.
stop changing the parameters of what I'm saying because that's cheating. Is the presence of evil incompatible with God existing?
Define God then.
Goodbye.
Oh my god.
Yes. Define God.
Do you see the pattern of behavior of these people? Stall, dodge, delay, lie, boulder dash, rabbit trail, obfuscate, prevaricate, double talk, wash, rinse, and repeat.
We're making more atheists than theists.
Yeah, that's confronting people with their irrationality. So me confronting with them that they're being irrational about their God denialism, that's making more atheists?
Mormonism is making more atheists.
You know, I complimented her on her maturity, but once I reached the point of her just nonstop evasiveness, I had a Popeye moment because that's all I can stand. I can't stand no more. Okay, it's great that you're cordial and you're mature, but if you're going to persistently prevaricate, okay, and obfuscate, we're done.
Could I phrase a transcendental argument something like?
No, let's see if we can get one of the atheist YouTubers up here, Tootski. Let's see if he has the courage and convictions to talk about his atheism when he's not behind his own microphone. Tootski, come on up and explain to me your atheism. You're bold enough to stream on a regular basis on TikTok. TikTok. So come on up. I'd like you to explain your atheism. I sent him an invite. Look at that, folks. We have another. Oh, not tonight. Oh, that's right. You see, the atheists only want to shoot their mouth off when they can completely control the parameters of the dialectic. Yeah, he's a genius, all right. Yeah, not tonight. Yeah. See, one of the tactics that they pull when they stream is they use their moderation to straitjacket their opponents. Okay?
I went on Yuri's stream today and like,
who?
This guy named Yuri. It's like Yuri, and
is he Yuri from Discord?
No, I don't think so. No. But anyways, like he had this guy on his panel was really annoying and it was making it impossible for me to talk. I just waited patiently for him to get finally leaves. And then I got to interact with the host, and the host was like, I could actually kind of talk to him. But then as soon as that starts happening, his like friend comes up and like runs interference.
Well, you know what we call that? They're called the Jacobins. Do you know who the Jacobins are?
Yeah, the French Revolution.
Yeah, they were the people who, if you disagree with them politically, they cut your head off.
Yeah. That was the Night of Terror and the cult of
and so what they're doing is metaphorically they're decapitating you by purposely running verbal interference in order to obstruct you from having an intelligent conversation.
Like anytime I try to give a syllogism, it like they always just get bogged down. Like I can never even get to the conclusion. They always like bog me down in the muck.
Well, that's their game. Stagnate the stalemate. All right, I'll be right back. I got to do something.
Hey, maybe we should call it a night, Darth. It's like been 4 hours. I'm getting kind of tired. P3. Wait, what is this? You're putting the problem of evil. Omnigod desires to eliminate all suffering. P2. Omnigod has the power to do so. P3. Suffering exists. Yeah, the problem of evil doesn't work because you have to show like an inconsistency with revelation and evil. But God has not revealed that evil is inconsistent with revelation. So, how would you like to say, President? I think I'm going to wind it down here pretty soon.
Yeah, I know. I'm just checking. I'm seeing what's up, man. Yeah, these loss, bro. It's today. Today just is a different level of loss for me when I was arguing though. Like I just, like you said, they're consistently just interrupting your like the way that you're arguing or something that you're saying with just semantics. Like it's like they care more about the semantics of the word and the words being placed in the exact way that their argument you're misrepresenting my argument than the actual argument that they're making. It's like it's so bad. It's so bad. It's just like they care about arguing more than they care about the argument. Like I never even knew like I didn't even know that was possible. To care about the art of arguing more than the actual
Yeah,
fact.
well, that's what we mean when we're saying bickering.
Yeah, like
they're not
I-
responding in like with a substantive way. They're just
yeah, it's just like they're just like it's like they are better at the art of arguing than they actually are at fucking making points. And for some reason, I feel like the art of arguing it makes people in the comment section feel like they're making better points than actually making fucking points, which is insane to me because it's like all you got to do is sound like you're making points and just argue shit and just cut people off and be like, prove that, show me that. Where is your evidence of this? And everybody gonna be like, yo, that's so true. Like that's like the best thing since sliced bread. Like you can't prove it. You can't prove it. So it must be true because you can't do it. Like it's so bad.
Hey, do you mind if I kind of like trying to wind this down? I got people requesting.
Yeah. Do your thing, bro.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah.
So you're Charlie. Charlie, guess. Charlie, you want to say something quick?
Yeah, you're asking them were pretty good. You know how you're asking them like, hey, like there are these brute facts or these necessary truths that he's just saying kind of just exist or are necessary.
Yeah, I kind of told him he was ignoring the issue of like the ultimate mystery and yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how to think about that. Like he was like saying red is just red or two is just two.
Basically, when Darth goes, I asked Graham Oppie, and Graham Oppie says that there's books on my shelf. You know how he says that all the time?
Yeah.
That's essentially what he just did to me.
I don't get it though. I don't get it. I don't get why.
So it's because that's what he's like an academic, and in academia, that's what philosophers have done. Because no one can solve David Hume, his issues, skepticism, and rather than like try to answer Hume, they've just sort of like turned epistemology into like science. It's called naturalized epistemology. So traditionally, epistemology is supposed to be about defeating skepticism. But they're just want to they're like, oh well, we can't beat David Hume, so let's just make epistemology like science rather than like what it traditionally was. And that's all like what Mullins is doing. He's just like he's ignoring the worldview issues and just granting himself all this like metaphysical content and like an unjustified move, I would say.
Right, but what does David Hume's problem of induction have to do with necessary truths such as two is two? and can't be anything else necessarily. That doesn't seem right to me, right? That seems very anti-Vantillian. Um, but I don't know how to. I would not know how to respond to that if that came up in a conversation. And I just again, I thought your questions were good. I don't think that Mullins answered your question very well, like in the sense that it made it understandable, as brilliant as he is and smart as he is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you chewed on it after you got off the live with him.
Well, I talked to Darth about it, and Darth told me basically, like, you know, it's like no disrespect. Mullins is way smarter than me.
Yeah, and me.
Yeah, but it's just like Darth said, the way Darth put it is like he just hasn't probably researched the issue of.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And
Yeah.
so if he Darth said like Plantica was brilliant, and he got things wrong about the presupposition.
Okay.
You kind of have to really do a lot of research to understand presup, I guess, and like
Yeah.
his academia is kind of like went the other way since David Hume. They used to try to answer these questions of like, what is ultimate reality? What is, because we want to say truth is that what corresponds to reality. And they're just skirting the issue. They're saying, well, my perception of reality is good enough. That's what they're doing. That's
Right.
what they're doing.
They don't even try to tackle it anymore, essentially.
Yeah, they're just ignoring the metaphysical issue.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any. I gotta read Bonson and Van Til more. I'm sure that they address those issues in their books, where it kind of gets to the nitty gritty of the philosophy. But digging through all that stuff to get that answer is tough. I'd rather somebody just show me where it is.
So when David Hume, he realized like he couldn't prove induction, he would just say like, or like causality. He would just say, well, these things are just like a habit of the mind that we just sort of like have to think this way. And that's not really like an answer or anything. And that's,
Right.
that's sort of what like Kant did with transcendental idealism. Kant made arguments that basically our mind just necessarily has to interpret the world this way. But the problem that Kant does is it only proves something's like conceptually true. He's only proving that our minds have to interpret.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So Van Til takes what Kant did and he takes it a step further and he takes it into the metaphysical.
Oh, and it's bankrolled by God.
Yeah, so Kant didn't want to. They always are trying to do their philosophy without God, like
right
in this way. And Van Til kind of was brilliant, where he's like, "Well, why are we doing this? Like, he's in from God's existence."
Right.
So,
Dude, you know what's beautiful about Tag? Because if God did exist, then of course you couldn't make metaphysical assumptions. You know, it all of the puzzle pieces line up when you start thinking this way.
It's kind of like God literally designed the world. Yeah, it's crazy how he designed it. It shows who he is.
Not just physically, but metaphysically too. It's actually quite beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool, man. I just wanted to pick your brain on that. Have a good night, bud.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed that Mullins kind of prevaricated when I asked him one question that was like tough for him to ask. When I asked him, well, couldn't God like reveal knowledge to me? Like what? He's God. Like I don't understand. Like why can God create the world, and He can create me, and He can create everything, but He can't like tell me some knowledge? So like it seems like if you believe God's the creator, then it's not that big of a leap to say, well, the creator gave me some knowledge. And then Ryan Mullins wanted to say, well, yeah, but you use your perceptions to interpret that knowledge or something. But that's not the issue. It's like the issue of like ultimately where does the knowledge come from? So it's like in my system, I'm saying that God like constructs the knowledge, and then human knowledge is derivative and dependent upon God constructing that knowledge. But they want to like take God out of the system and say like humans are constructing the knowledge. But then if humans are like constructing the knowledge, then what is that? Relativity, skepticism. Like we just can make up anything is true. So I don't see how like how else do you go? Because it's either like God puts meaning in the world for us to discover, or we invent meaning in the world. I don't see the other. I don't know. They just want to ignore this, though, I guess. Which is weird because, like, he's a Christian, and it's like such a great way to prove Christianity. And these, like, classical and evidential approach to apologetics, that only made sense back in, like, Thomas Aquinas. Remember when Thomas Aquinas does the 5 ways? The whole world is Christian. There's no such thing as skepticism. But because we have skepticism, we have to do an anti-skeptical argument. And that's what Kant was trying to do with the transcendental program, where transcendental arguments are anti-skeptical arguments. So while we're not Kantian, because we don't think Kant solved the issue, we're like more of like a Van Tillian, I suppose. Guess we gotta give credit to Van Til. He kind of started it, so he was a smart dude. Can anybody explain a verse for you? What? God's not invented. It's not a God of the gaps. We're saying that God uniquely can provide the Christian worldview uniquely is consistent with observable data. All the other worldviews would be inconsistent with observable data. So, like, if you reject Christianity, you're just being inconsistent. And I'm really tired, though. All right, thanks, everyone.